So, John, Beth said that she's just having some technical difficulties and she'll be on in a second.
Okay. Thanks, Angela. All right, well, we can go ahead and get started then. I will call the regular meeting of the Ridgway Town Council for Wednesday, January 12th to order, our first meeting of the new year, 2022. And welcome everybody. We've got kind of a medium-sized agenda tonight, so hopefully we won't be on this too late, but Pam will start off with a roll call, please.
Councilmember Beck.
Yep.
Farrelly.
Present.
Gramley is absent. Lakin. Is she present?
No, she's
Is
She's
not
not-
present.
Not on present.
Skylar.
here.
Mayor Pro Tem Meyer.
Here.
Mayor Clark.
Here. Thank you for that. That brings us to additions or deletions to the agenda. Are there any additions or deletions from staff?
Just one from staff. Request the addition of an item to discuss the resignation of Councilor Angela Farrelly.
A sad topic, but yes, we need to address that. Sorry to hear you're leaving, Angela. We've valued you on council, but we understand how life happens. So we'll put that at the end of policy matters. Does that sound good, Preston?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Anything else?
Nothing from staff.
Anybody on council have anything? All right.
Beth just
That-
joined.
Okay.
Takes us to adoption of the consent calendar. If there's anything on there anybody wants to pull off and deal with separately, please say so. Otherwise, is there a motion to approve? Hi, Beth. Welcome.
So I move to approve the consent calendar.
Second.
Motion made, seconded. Roll call vote, please.
Seconded by Terry.
Yeah.
Councilmember Beck.
Aye.
Farrelly.
Hi.
Lakin. Skylar.
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Meyer.
Aye.
Lakin, that was, Beth, that was a vote on the approving the consent calendar. Did you hear that?
Perfect.
Okay.
Sorry, guys.
That's all right. Glad you got on. All right, that takes us to public comment. This is established time for the public to address the council regarding any item not otherwise listed on the agenda. We ask that you limit your comments to 5 minutes per person. If anybody has anything they want to address us about that's not otherwise on the agenda, please raise your hand. I see Val's hand up. Val, go ahead.
Yes, John, can you hear me?
Yep.
Yes, again, I would like to thank council for their support of dark skies in the area. And I just wanted to point out that just here in the last day or two, the new edition of the 2022 Ridgway Guide was published and posted online. And it has a dark sky theme, thanks to the Ridgway Area Chamber of Commerce for doing that. And they gave me the opportunity to promote dark skies in the welcome letter on page 6. So, and there's a couple of other things happening that are not quite mature yet, but I just got finished with proofing an article in the Western Colorado magazine, Spoken Blossom. And so there's an article about top and dark skies expected to be published in the spring edition, probably sometime in the next month. And I think, as some of you know, the online technology magazine, The Verge, sent a few people out here in December, and they were visiting top, and so there's expected to be an online publication of astrophotography and the dark skies in the area here on The Verge sometime soon. When that happens, I'll give you guys a heads up. But again, I'd like to thank council for their support for this, as it's getting a lot of promotion in the area. Then the Colorado Tourism Office is focused on it as well across the state. Some of you may be concerned about all the additional tourists that may be attracted However, is that as the Colorado Tourism Office believes, is that it tracks environmentally conscious tourism that I think is consistent to the DNA of Ridgway. So thank you again for your support.
Thanks, Val. I appreciate that. Thanks for keeping us posted. I saw the email from you of however many weeks it was about the Verge article, and then the fact that Betty Maya Foote was here from IDA. I've been following her and her photography for a while, so that was pretty exciting. Great work. Thank you.
Yeah, that's I think it was rather significant that Betty Maya came here and visited Ridgway and Top here in December as well. So we're getting some attention actually from headquarters. So
Yeah.
thanks again.
She lives in Arizona or Utah, I believe, but
She actually resides in Durango now. That's why it
that
was
helps.
relatively easy for her to make the trek up this way.
Awesome. Great. Thanks for letting us know. Anybody else have a public comment?
I do, but I don't know how to raise my, oh, sorry.
I see Angela raising her hand. Angela, you want to go ahead?
Yes, thank you. And thanks, counselors, for all your service to our fine community. I appreciate your volunteerism and the work you put in. And I know taking criticism is not easy. I wear that hat often, and I appreciate your willingness to listen to us with our comments. And unfortunately, my comment is regarding an agenda item, but I won't be able to stay on. And I wasn't able to find any information on the website or the agenda detailing resolution number 2201 about the amending the policy relative to noxious weeds. And I did hear from a concerned community member that there's a possibility you're considering using chemicals for weed control. And one, I'd like to ask where to find the current policy that we have, because I remember many years with Danny being the steward of our parks, how we were very proud of our organic stewardship of our public spaces. And I haven't been able to find any place on our website that outlines what our policy is on use of chemicals or non-use of chemicals. So when I saw this on the agenda, I didn't know where to find any information to educate myself. And I have a real concern for a number of reasons about the use of chemicals.
Understood. Did you download the entire packet? Because the packet had like a more than 50 pages of the old policy, the history of how it was drafted, and then the new resolution. It was all in the packet.
Okay, I'm very sorry for that, but I will state my opposition to that. And sorry, I can't stay for the presentation.
That's okay. Understood. Dana, did you want to speak up?
Yeah. How do I put my hand on that just for next time?
What kind of device? What are you using? A laptop or an iPad or what?
I'm using a MacBook Pro.
Okay, so at the bottom of the screen in Zoom, there's participants, share screen, record, and then reaction.
Yeah.
Reactions is where the raise hand.
Okay. Okay. I see. Raise hand.
Okay.
There we go. Oh.
Go
Okay.
ahead.
Yeah, this is my third time in front of the council. That means 90 days have passed since I first asked you about your goals and aspirations towards the climate crisis. In one of the other meetings, the town council told me that you would be more transparent and you would put more of your climate agenda on the website. There's nothing on the website yet. The cap is not on there, which really is not a Ridgway cap. It's a Telluride cap, even though you've signed on it. So
No,
I'm just
it's a Uray County
wondering.
cap as well, Dana. It is.
Yeah, well, I don't see you following any of the climate action plan that's in that cap, because there's nothing on the website yet, which you said you were going to be more transparent. Also, I'm wondering, you also said you were going to review your master plan concerning the building codes. I am wondering if that has transpired at all. And then I'm wondering, I've gotten online and I've seen just a second here, the Denver's green building ordinance that I was told by CORE, whom I'm sure you know. CORE is the Community Office for Resource Efficiency that runs out of Aspen. I was told by one of their staff members that within the next 5 years that this ordinance is going to become a reality, which is going to require solar on all new buildings and actually on older buildings. I'm wondering if you're just in the process now of requiring new developmental buildings to at least put in the infrastructure to make sure that the roofs can support solar panels, and also putting in the wiring and the conduits so that the solar panels can go on these buildings when since you're not going to do an ordinance yourself, it doesn't seem like you're going to wait for someone else to tell you what to do. I'm just wondering if even the space to create building has taken that into account. That's a question.
Yeah, it has. Yep.
What has it done? What have you done on that building?
Well, it's all electric, so it qualifies for San Miguel Power's rebates for all electric. And because the town of Ridgway is at least the government power bills are all totally green, is what they call it on their website. They're all offset by the solar gardens around San Miguel's territory. And I believe that this building will be part of that as well, since it's a town and space creation.
Are you putting in a structure for the roof to accommodate the weight of the solar panels? And are you putting in the conduits to allow for the wiring once solar is going to be required on that building? Are you doing that in this process?
We've been discussing it throughout. Looks like Sherry wants to respond to that.
Well, the building's being built right now. So I mean,
I just told you that it's been discussed throughout and we're doing
beyond
it.
discussion.
Dana, excuse me. Terry would like to respond. Go ahead.
Okay.
I've worked with the project engineers to assess the potential for putting solar on the roof, as well as eventually a potential solar parking carport in the back. And they have agreed to explore putting in the conduit necessary to, at a minimum, power the shared space, the Ridgway common space.
Community space.
Well,
Yeah.
as community space, sorry, as well as potentially putting in a second panel for emergency backup to create an emergency shelter with solar battery backup in the community space. The reality is that it's the roof space doesn't have enough area to provide a tangible amount of solar to individual dwellings. So that's likely not going to occur. As we may investigate the requirement for offsetting or carbon neutral for future development, one of the options is they can participate in a community solar garden and or the Totally Green program, which they are probably going to be participating in, as John just alluded to. So in many cases, whether it be a commercial building or a residential building, the access to solar, either by virtue of the square footage and or shading or orientation, may not be conducive to solar. So the concept of mandating solar by itself may not work in many cases, but there are alternatives to achieving the same objective. So we'll be working with them to help find a way to
Who's
achieve
them? Who is the them you're working with? I'm sorry,
Dana?
I didn't.
the art
Dana.
space.
Art.
The art space and the contractor, and actually the contractor is here tonight on another item. Mark Klutz has his hand up. Do you want to address this, Mark? Is that all you-
Yeah, if I could, can you hear
Yeah,
me?
go ahead.
So to answer part of her question, yes, we have included infrastructure up to the roof on the Art Space project, Space to Create. So there are conduits and feeds going up from the electrical room to accommodate in the future. So that is part of our contract. That is a part of the vision and project as it's been going forward. And that comes from both the developer side as well as the town of Ridgway side. So.
Good work. Thank
And Dana, I'd
you.
just like to point out, sorry about my voice. I've got a cold. I don't know how long I'm going to last tonight. But on the homepage of the Town of Ridgway website, The San Miguel and Uray County Regional Climate Action Plan is right there under the public information section, upper left. So I understand that maybe, I mean, websites can be hard to navigate. We have a lot of information that we need to get out to the public, but it is front and center. It's a link right there. So
Let's see, can I get on to where you can see me?
you can turn on
somehow?
your video, but we don't need you to share your screen. Is that what you're asking?
I have in front of me 3 documents that I've printed out. One is from Boulder, one is from Aspen, and one is from Telluride. The Boulder document is over 50 pages. The Aspen document is about 15, and the Telluride document is about 5. And they're basically stating that we are in a profound climate crisis, and they're taking executive action to redo their building codes to accommodate what's happening to our world.
Dana,
And I am just wondering where you are on that.
well, if you talk about Boulder, Aspen, and Telluride having documents of decreasing lengths, written on it having 1 page, you have an entire master plan that has things about environmental sustainability. And so we did make some changes to our building code last year, allowing people to build on smaller lots, which leads to smaller homes. We also, moving people into town where they can walk to work is also a climate benefit. You know, putting a space to create and where people are living where they're working and not commuting is a benefit.
Huge benefit.
What's that?
No, I'm
Huge benefit.
talking more about specific
I
percentages
that.
of emissions that you're going to decrease by 2030. But what basically all of these documents say, which I cannot find anywhere in the Ridgway government anywhere, is that all of government climate action becomes mainstream in every government department and agency with systematic approach and governance systems that ensure long-term emissions reduction target to integrate into the city's daily operations and policies. Basically, what all 3 of these documents are saying is that if we don't act right now to do something seriously with our city governments, our town governments, our communities, that we are, that there will no longer be a planet.
Dana,
And I think
can I-
probably everybody here knows that, but I do not see anything on your website that says you're going to
Dana,
sequester
it's
carbon.
there. Dana, can I ask you a
Not
question?
there.
It is.
Sorry.
And what I'd like to do, this is not the forum for a discussion.
All right,
about
well, that's all I have to say. I'll drop all this stuff off, and maybe you can find time to put on your website some interesting
on
things
the
for
website.
the
It's-
community. No, it's
And
not on your website.
Dana, could maybe you and Preston and I get together sometime so we can discuss this and we can show you what we're doing and what we have done. It's like, I don't understand why you are choosing to be belligerent about something that we've been working on.
I'm not
more
choosing
than
to
a
be
decade.
belligerent. I'm trying to protect my children. All right?
And we are
And my
too, but
children's-
your
Mayor.
You aren't.
approach is
Anyway, I will get off the.
antagonistic. And
I
that's
won't
not,
say-
If I may.
You can call me
go ahead.
antagonistic. I
Yeah.
don't-
So again, the public comment is just that. It's not really intended to be a back and forth. You know, it's more so to raise some concerns for issues that are not on the agenda. Certainly, if there's information that needs to be provided, John, Preston, feel free to schedule a standalone meeting with Ms. Ivers. But again, it's not intended to be that back and forth type of forum. So.
thanks, both. I mean,
Thank you very much, and I'll drop off everything I have.
okay,
thank you.
thanks, Dana.
Thank you.
I mean, I just have to say publicly that during my tenure as mayor, I've always gone out of my way, bent over backwards to make sure people feel heard. Because to me, that's the most important thing in local government, is that our constituents, our fellow citizens feel heard. And Dana, we're hearing you. I've said that numerous times, and I really think we need to sit down and talk, because you're not finding this stuff, but it's not because it's not there. And we've been working on this for well over a decade. We've got a cap. We've got a master plan that includes a bunch of these things. The town of Ridgway is totally offset. We've done almost everything we can do in terms of reducing our footprint as a town government. Now it's about educating the rest of the town, the rest of our citizens. And that I highly encourage you to help do that. And you sent me an email earlier today about creating a climate committee. I'm open to that idea. We need to sit down and talk about it, and we need to talk about it as a council, but I think that's enough for this item.
Can I add a quick little factoid for you?
Sure. Go ahead.
Recently, earlier this week, we presented a living trophy like we did to Ridgway to the city of Uray that also went totally green. So the county of Uray, the city of Uray, and the town of Ridgway have gone totally green. And I went and did some calculations in preparation for presenting that trophy to show that Uray Hydro, as a renewable energy generator, covers the loads of the city, the town, and the county just by itself, that one renewable energy plant. So we should take pride in the fact that not only is the town 100% totally green, it's actually getting the energy from a nearby renewable energy plant. It's actually the fourth oldest
In the
hydro
country.
in the world. So it's a pretty historic plant. So I just thought I'd throw that in there for everybody's.
Thanks,
benefit.
Terry. That's cool. That's great to know. All right. Anybody else have a public comment about something that's not otherwise on the agenda?
I started mine
You're lucky if you get it in
December, no, November, right after
Wait.
Thanksgiving.
Hey,
Richard?
Juice, mute yourself.
Okay, great. All right. So hearing or seeing no other hands up, we'll move on. We have no public requests and presentations tonight. We have a couple of public hearings. The first one is item number 6, application for restaurant liquor license, applicant Richard L. Pinney, Robert B. Collins Jr., and Sierra S. Mulford, members of Rack Stars BBQ LLC, doing business as Lazy Dog Saloon Bar and Grill, location 153 North Highway 550, Unit 1. Pam, take it away.
All right. Yes, we've received an application for a restaurant liquor license from Richard Penny, Robert Collins Jr., and Sierra Mufford, that are members of a new LLC called Rack Star Barbecue. And they wish to license the premises at 153 North Highway 550, Unit 1. They are looking at operating a restaurant called Lazy Dog Saloon Bar and Grill in the existing restaurant currently called Lazy Dog Saloon. The request is to license the facility, the existing patio to the south side of the building, and a new patio on the west side of the facility, which are all currently licensed in the premises that is holding the current license. The applicants are also requesting a concurrent review, which requires approval of the council to operate the establishment prior to receiving the state issued liquor license. And I see that one of the applicants is on the call. If you have any questions.
Okay, anybody have any questions for Pam or the applicant? Or let's see, since this is a public hearing, I'm going to ask that I'll ask Richard, since you're on the call, do you have anything you want to add as far as
No, sir.
Okay, no other comments. Okay. Then council, anybody on council have questions for either Richard or staff?
I just wanted to add that I did my personal due diligence today by going and getting a delicious burger at lunch from the establishment.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Okay, I will open this up since it's a public hearing. I'll open it up for public comment. Anybody in the audience on Zoom have anything they want to add, any comments or questions about? And if you have a question, it's not like a back and forth. You can state your question and then we can either council or staff can try and answer it, or we can try and direct it to the applicant. But please raise your hand or just unmute yourself and speak up if you have a question or a comment. Okay, seeing none, we need to deliberate. What's everybody's feeling on this?
I don't see any issues with this. They didn't actually state it, but I understand they've had trouble working with the state with the existing license, so they're just trying to clear that up. So I take no exception to the issue.
I agree.
Same here.
All right, so somebody needs to make a motion then.
I move to approve the liquor license for Rack Stars Barbecue LLC DBA Lazy Dog Saloon Bar and Grill.
Second.
It sounded like Terry beat you to the punch there. So motion made by Russ, seconded by Terry. Roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Beck,
Aye.
Farrelly,
You there, Angela? There we
oh,
go.
there we go.
You're muted
Hi,
again.
sorry.
All right.
Lakin,
Aye.
Skylar,
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Meyer.
Aye.
All right, passes unanimously. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Richard. Good luck.
Thank you, brother.
All right, that takes us to item number 7, extension request to meet conditions of approval of preserve PUD preliminary plat, location Savas subdivision, part of Outlot A and Woodford Edition, address TBD County Road 23, zone residential R, owner Dalwhinnie Group LLC. Preston, you kicking this off?
Yes, sir. So before you is an extension request for the Preserve PUD preliminary plat approval initially granted back in March of 2018. And then it was subsequently extended in March of 2020. If approved, the extension would allow the applicant another 2 years to meet the conditions assigned with the initial preliminary plat approval. So right now, the current expiration date on the preliminary plat is March 11th of 2022. So a couple months time. Attached to the memo before you is a formal extension request letter from Chris Hawkins, who represents the applicant. The letter cites pandemic delays and impacts, extreme economic swings, consulting delays, increased material costs, and significant regional contractor shortage as reasons for the request. The code allows for extension of preliminary plat approval for good cause and allows for council to grant additional time to meet the conditions that have been assigned. Definitely want to note, you probably read it in the memo, but want to note that there's a large section of the property falls within the UROD, the Uncompahgre River Overlay District. The property isn't currently subject to the UROD's River Corridor development regulations. The initial preliminary plat back in 2018 was granted shortly prior to the UROD being enacted. I say initial preliminary plat, I know there's a longer history that goes back before 2018, but that's when this specific preliminary plat was approved. So with that, Mayor, I'll turn it back over to you. And I don't see Chris Hawkins on the call, but maybe Michael Cox might want to talk on behalf of the applicant.
Yeah, Michael, do you have anything you want to add?
Yes. Hi. I think Chris had more information than me, really. I brought Chris on board to help us out to kind of keep this project moving along. It's been a real struggle, trying to make it work. We've had some difficulties with the lift station on the property and planning that out. And we spent about 6 months looking at alternatives to the lift station and just really that didn't work out. So we've had a lot of struggles, of course, with COVID and everything else, but we're looking at it as really more of a holistic project. So one of the things that we've done, we spent this last year doing is we've gotten ourselves under contract with the abandoned greenhouse across the river. We look at that as a real effect for property values and future residents that might want to live in that area. Look, this is all directly across from the town's soccer fields. And so we were very concerned about having that there. So we are under contract on that property now, and our intentions are to demolish it. And we are going to clean that property and revegetate it. So that was a big step for us. And we were excited to be involved with the Park Pavilion as well in the design and helping out with that. And so I am sad that we are not further along on the project. But I hope that if we can get an extension, we'll be able to get to completion.
Okay, thanks, Michael. Anybody on council have questions for either Michael or staff?
I did just want to point out one comment here. I saw very down at the end of Chris's note said that if Dalwhinnie will not seek another extension if council approves this request.
That would be accurate, because I feel like, we're at the point now where we understand the varying factors on this particular plot. And, it's get it done or don't do it.
Okay, fair enough.
Anyone else? Hearing none, since it's a public hearing, I'm gonna open it up to public comments.
Sorry,
do.
Mayor, I did have my hand up, but I guess it's not visible. It's Robin.
It's your timing is impeccable. It's time for public comments. So
Okay, great.
want to address
Thanks.
this item. Go ahead, identify yourself and your address, please.
Yeah, Robin Cascade, 575 Sabeta. And just want to say how much living in the neighborhood of the preserve, we appreciate all that Dalwhinnie has tried to do to conserve habitat and protect the landscape. And I was one of the people that commented very early on about setbacks from the river. And I don't know now with the river overlay, if there's ways in this extension that, I don't know the procedure, so I might be speaking out of turn, but if there's ways that we could preserve some of that river corridor and increase the setback, I would be thrilled. And otherwise, tell me if I'm out of turn even speaking about that when you're extending something, if it just is the very same document that gets extended.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, basically, just kind of FYI, because this is a request that is it's in our ordinances to allow us to extend it, but we can also put conditions on any extension that we do. So there is potential for us to address your concern, among other things. So that's something for us to discuss. Michael, I see your hand up again. Well, let's see. Wait, let me, Michael, before you speak, since this is a public hearing, we got to follow the state statute protocol here. So we have to take more public comment, and then we can come back and take comment from you. So anyone else in the public want to address this particular request? I don't see any other hands up. So
yeah, Your Honor, I also joined a little bit late. Chris Hawkins representing Dalwhinnie. So thank you and apologies for being a little bit late.
Okay, yep, I see you. I was just going to ask Bo and Preston, as far as public hearing protocol goes, we can take more comment from the applicant. Is that correct?
That's correct, John.
Okay, so I'm going to close the public comment section of the hearing and give Chris and or Michael a chance to respond to at least Robin's question.
Okay. If I'll just start out and then let Michael answer the question. Apologies, you guys are way ahead of schedule. So thank you. Good evening. We appreciate the opportunity to be able to request the extension request this evening. The town council approved this project back in March 14th, 2018. And there was another extension before then. Immediately after this approval, everything changed with COVID, and that really has impacted the project. Dalwhinnie bought the property in 2018 and has been really addressing those conditions. The biggest task to date has been completing the required U.S. Army Corps of Engineers permit work around the river. It's also completed survey and engineering work to establish the floodplain areas. And I think you may remember this last time. I think we met, we were the last public meeting right before the COVID hit hard and there were no more public meetings. And at that time, we were exploring whether or not we could do a gravity flow sewer line down Liddell to try to reduce or eliminate the pump station. And we spent approximately 6 months of time doing that. In the end, it was too cost restrictive and really deep, and it didn't eliminate the need for the lift station. So it was a good try, but it didn't work. The Dalwhinnie submits that an extensive amount of time, work and money has been spent on the town approved subdivision, including excavating the areas under the lots to build a fence drain system due to soils conditions, the main sewer line to the lift station site, the start of other utility work installation. Several elements of the lift station are also present on the property and ready for installation. 2 subdivision roads have been rough graded and the overall subdivision drainage system has been constructed. Dalwhinnie has an excavation proposal / contract in hand for the subdivision work to start in the spring of this year. And really why we're here is because of COVID. I mean, that's the main reason. We all know what happened. We had slowdowns in consulting times, the quarantines. We also had similar times where people just couldn't even show up to job sites. We essentially took the 2020 season to really look at the sewer issue. And then in 2021, there's an extreme contractor shortage and significantly increased material costs. So all those things have really led to this request. One thing that Dalwhinnie has done, and I think you've seen this out there, is they've been creating a great landscape. And Dalwhinnie is currently did not want to develop the property until they could deal with the old gravel pit operation that's been used for marijuana grow. That's currently under contract for purchase. And it's Dalwhinnie's intent to clean up all the unsightly outdoor storage, the big buildings, to revegetate disturbed areas. And basically it's going to help improve the riparian habitat. That also sets the stage for finishing the subdivision up to where these lots aren't going to be looking across the river to a blighted light industrial property. The preserved PUD has significant community benefits. Lot 20 has 4 affordable housing units. The developer also has to pave basically Chipeta at the intersection from Lena Street to County Road 23 and along County Road 23 to the end of the subdivision, and also has to install a recreation path. And that's in addition to the other environmental benefits that have been put on the river with the core restoration work and now cleaning up the blighted property. Dalwhinnie respectfully requests a 2-year extension for the preliminary plat approval for March. And basically, this is the last request. That'll give us this upcoming building season to complete the work and then time to work through the town's final plat process. It also gives time in case there's other slowdowns, and also to just gives us a little bit of breathing room. This is not a dissimilar request. 3 requests versus 6 for the River Park Light Industrial. Dalwhinnie has indicated this will be their last request, and we really hope you agree with us on granting the extension. And last, Michael Cox did want to speak a little bit. And again, apologies for joining the meeting late, Your Honor.
That's okay, Chris. Michael actually already spoke. I don't know if there's anything you want to add, Michael, but he addressed some of the things that you addressed.
Okay.
Yeah, I give the Cliff Notes version. I just want to Robin's question. I was very concerned about, look, we're building houses along the river and what's that going to be like. And so when the Army Corps came out and they were in the process of, finalizing that Army Corps permit, the conversation was essentially, will the residents have access to the river from their lot? And the answer is no. So they will have a beautiful view and they will get to see the river, but we will not be disturbing any of the willows or anything along the river's edge because that is very hard to replace. So that was one of the stipulations of the Army Corps permit, Robert.
Okay, thanks, Michael. And thanks, Chris. Okay, back up here at council. Does anybody, again, have questions for either staff or the applicant? And if not, we can do some deliberating.
I just had a quick thing on, I think it's item 20C, and it says that there's a exemption of ecological survey. And I'm just wondering as to what the reasoning for that exemption is.
If I could try answering that, Your Honor, I'd be glad to.
Yeah, go ahead.
So the Uncompahgre River Overlay District was adopted after the subdivision was approved, and that requires the ecological surveys in the district. So it's basically grandfathered. Doing an ecological survey now after the subdivision's already been approved at preliminary plat really would not be able to do anything in this corridor in terms of having that. So that's my best professional guess as to why it's not required for this. But maybe you have better insights, John, since you were present during all those other prior hearings.
Yeah, honestly, I don't recall. And that 20C looks like it kind of has a typo, addition on note regarding completion of improvements and construction within 75 feet of the high water mark and ecological survey exemption. So I'm not sure if that's worded the way it was intended. And, this goes back quite a ways. So I don't recall. I think Chris is probably correct in that it was just spelling out the fact that this subdivision wasn't going to be required to meet the UROD because it was coming in under the wire before UROD was approved. But I'm not sure. And actually, I'm not sure there's anybody else here who goes back that far on this item. So thanks for pointing that out, Angela, but I think Chris's guess is probably as good as anything. It is the UROD that requires the ecological survey. So that would make sense. I guess I was going to say, I think this is one of those deals where because they did basically come in and get their preliminary plat just by the skin of their teeth to avoid being having to meet the UROD requirements, I'd be probably more comfortable with a 1-year exemption than a 2 or extension, pardon me. But I'm open to hearing what the rest of council thinks.
Yeah, I was wondering, I know that it was approved before UROD, and I'm not sure about if we can say, now that they're requesting an extension, that they have to meet those, that ordinance, regulations or not.
So I don't want to speak for Michael, but
Chris,
I think
Chris,
I'm sorry.
Hold on.
I'll be quiet.
It's okay. I think following the public hearing,
sorry,
can't let you
Yeah,
speak
I'm
again
sorry.
unless we open that part up again. I might ask Bo's opinion on whether or not we could put some conditions on here regarding the UROD.
Certainly, Mayor, you could put some conditions on the approval here. The concern that I have is that, I don't know how it would look, and forgive the metaphor, but kind of fitting the square peg into the round hole in terms of the approvals that occurred pre UROD versus what having the overlay district would look like in terms of if that would result in a loss of, lots that could be developed. I think that there's a kind of a difficult balance that I don't know is necessarily and would welcome any sort of weigh in from Preston or from TJ, but I don't know if that kind of analysis has been done in terms of what the impact would be on the existing approvals.
Thanks, Bo. That was kind of my take too. I mean, I think what we would have to do in my view, and correct me if I'm wrong, either Bo or Preston, is we'd have to kind of pick out specific items from the criteria in the URAD and state those as conditions. Rather than, I don't think we can really just say we want a condition that they meet the URAD. Excuse me.
Yeah, I would share that same concern, John, just because I don't know that blanket statement could necessarily be achieved. Now, could be that, I mean, kind of, again, you could deny the extension request. You could modify it with the conditions. But I think just a blanket in compliance with the overlay district requirements might create something where the analysis hasn't been done on that, frankly, at the staff level in terms of what that would look like. So
yeah, it would almost require that it goes back to P&Z anyway, as if we had denied it, the extension.
I kind of feel like, I mean, which certainly you could do. You could deny the extension. So
I guess here's I don't know if TJ knows the answer to this. What would be the substantial changes we'd be looking at with Europe? I mean, if we're looking at pieces of it, we're being told that the willows on the edge of the river aren't going to be disturbed. I guess on the other, I guess I said that, and now I'm thinking that, or should we approve this extension because COVID happened? They did squeak in before URAD. I don't see anything egregious to the river by continuing this. It almost seems like we're trying to consider two things at once.
Yeah, you were breaking up a bit there, Beth. It sounds like your internet.
My internet is.
It's not ideal tonight.
So, Mayor, if I may,
I
think I heard most of what Beth had said. TJ isn't on the call today, but I can kind of talk on staff's behalf. That analysis that Bo was talking about hasn't been done, but certainly can in a month's time if there was a desire to push this out a month. There's some time before the I guess the deadline, not the deadline, but the end of the preliminary plat approval. So I'm just offering that as an alternative if there is a desire on the part of council for staff to look at all of the river corridor development regulations and provide for that analysis on what it would take for this particular development to achieve certain ones. If that answers your question, Beth, or talks to it a little bit more.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I'm actually leaning towards, I don't think we need to do that. I think this applicant's coming to us with the world went upside down in the middle of our preliminary plat. May we have an extension? I don't know. That's kind of where I'm thinking.
And with respect to the 1 year versus 2, since they're suggesting that this would be their last submittal, I would favor 2, just so we don't have to revisit this in a year.
And I will say what I do recall from, I mean, this subdivision goes back to 2006 and 2008, and then a long stretch where it was just sat fallow, and then Delwini came in and bought it. But if you look at page 4 on attachment 2, it talks about the 8-foot setback, rear setback for properties that abut the river. In addition, there's a 10-foot setback from the high water mark. So I do recall that we went to some length to try and make sure that these lots were going to be minimally impactful to the river. And while it's probably not quite as restrictive as the UROD, it goes a long ways towards that, in my view. So that's my 2 cents on that. What's everybody else think?
My thought would be to kind of go with Preston's suggestion and maybe push it, do a little bit of review on it. I realize COVID's turned everybody's world upside down, but it'd be good to bring everybody kind of under the same roof.
So you're suggesting that we table this for a month and have staff look at how well they, I mean, what would be the goal of the month delay to look at the project in light of the UROD and decide whether or not, and have staff make a ruling on whether or not they think that it comes close to meeting that or needs to, or what?
Yeah, I mean, and I get I see what Beth is saying in terms of we've done our due diligence a little bit on this, but again, bringing everybody kind of under the UROD and one kind of final pass on it might be good, saying, yeah, we think we're good with this, let's go, or no, we need to deny it. It just gives a little bit more time to kind of review it.
Okay, there's one suggestion. What's the feeling of the rest of council?
The fact that it's not currently subject to the UROD, is it moot? I mean,
It's a pre-existing non-conforming use, Terry, so.
Right, so I guess if we grandfather it in or if we put, conditions on it.
Yeah, basically, my take on it would be to say that the preliminary plat approval that they got back in 2018 and then got an extension in 2020 to March of this year gave them the ability to avoid the impacts of the UROD. Now that they're asking for another extension, we're in a position where we can ask them to meet some or all of the stipulations of the UROD as conditions. That's my take. And I could go either way. I don't get a vote unless there's a tie. And since Kevin's not here tonight, there's not going to be a tie. So you guys need to decide how you want to handle this.
As I recall, part of the deal on this was that I think, as we've said, a lot of the preliminary plat got pushed through prior to UROD in order to avoid having to comply with it to a point. And then there was also some measures that the development was hoping to do, which included the sidewalk down County Road 23 versus taking up any more of the space down along the river. And then listening to Michael and their work that they've done with the Corps, they've done a good job of preventing direct access to the river in the area to help maintain the river corridor. So I guess the question is, do we really need to go back and relook this again to decide if in fact we want to try and push those UROD requirements further or not? So I don't know. It seems like they've done a reasonable job of trying to accommodate without actually giving trail access down there or whatever the UROD would actually specifically require down there. Does that sound right?
That's pretty accurate. I think the biggest potential impact of somehow making them subject to the UROD through adding conditions to the approval of extending the preliminary plat approval, it could actually trigger some redesigning of entire lots and potentially even making some lots untenable completely, which I guess is just another way of saying what I just said. It certainly could potentially make them kind of have to go back to the drawing board in light of some of the lots. But without getting into the nitty gritty details, I don't have a sense of how big a deal that would be. You know, I think to me, what we have to weigh is some of the things that Beth said about, you know, COVID and all of that has an impact, cost of materials. But then what they said about, you know, acquiring the property across the river and wanting to clean that up is part of the whole package. And, you know, I question whether or not that's really relevant or not, but, you know, they certainly have bent over backwards to try and be good stewards of the property and the neighboring properties. So we need to just kind of weigh all those things and decide which way we want to go.
So if it were not for those circumstances, COVID, materials, et cetera, this would have been approved without this further consideration of the UROD?
That's for each of us to decide. I can't answer that question, put the way you
So
put it.
the same question would have occurred 2 years ago as it's being presented now, separate from the extension part of it.
Well,
In
I mean,
terms
I
of
think one of the things that, sorry, what was that?
in other words, we would have been at a position to approve the preliminary plat if it weren't for the COVID based on the conditions they had met previously.
So to be clear, it's been approved, but they have to, in order to meet the stipulations of that approval, they have to complete all the
other conditions,
improvements by March that are in the conditions. And so they want an extension on that. They want an extension of their existing preliminary plat approval. And I would say, for what it's worth, Chris mentioned that other subdivisions in town, specifically the phase 2 of the light industrial on the north side of town, has gone through numerous extensions of their preliminary plat for primarily economic development reasons. And so these guys are saying they've got similar pitfalls that they're trying to deal with, and they're asking us to take pity on them for that and extend it because of those extended waiting circumstances.
Hey, John, can you hear me better now?
Yes.
Okay,
Pardon me?
cool. Sorry, switch devices.
Much better, yes.
I mean, I guess we had a similar situation with someone who'd come back for multiple extensions, and we basically said, we'll give you one more and then we're done. My inclination here is we have a development, they're saying we're going to ask for this one and then we are done. My gut reaction based on fairness and logic that we've had in other projects that, yes, given didn't have the sensitivity of the river involved, would be to grant this extension. And then they won't come back because they told us they weren't going to, but if they do, then I would say, yeah, you know, you don't get another extension. You don't get anything more than 4 years past what you had initially. That, you know, they've had one, they're asking us for a second one. My gut reaction would be to grant this one and stipulate and be clear that we won't be granting another, and they'll have to go back and go through the UROD process.
I believe we could make that a condition of our extension, is that we say this is the last one.
And we've done that in the last 6 months. So, I mean, that's kind of my reaction on this.
And I'm kind of with you there. So.
If I may, John.
Yeah.
Certainly you can do that and you can have that as part of the record. Now, whether or not the applicant would still enjoy the process through the
they could ask again.
They can ask again, but we've established the record. So
yeah. Yep. And I think that's what we said last time, Bo. Like, just, you know, we were going through this deliberative process. We're willing to be understanding, but you know, things do change. We've talked about it with infrastructure. We've talked about it with river overlay district. There's only so long you can carry a preliminary plat over before what was approved in that preliminary plat doesn't meet the current standards.
Right.
Hi.
Somebody needs to mute. No, no, there we go. Sorry. All right. So where are we at on this? I've heard Adam suggest that we might table this for a month and have staff look at the potential of requiring some of the URAD stipulations. More recently, Beth suggested that maybe we just go ahead and grant the extension and stipulate, let the record show that it's the last time we're going to grant it.
It would seem that based on precedents that what Beth suggested makes sense.
Yeah, I'm in agreement.
Okay, well,
So I move to approve an extension for preserved PUD preliminary plat subdivision part of it, Outlot A in the Woodford addition for a period of 2 years, with the condition that this would be the last extension signed with additional conditions assigned at the March 14, 2018 approval, and to allow up to 2 years to meet those conditions. And I may not have said that properly.
I think that's clear enough. At least to me it was.
So I'll second that.
All right, motion made by Terry, seconded by Russ. Can we have a roll call vote, please?
Council members Beck,
Aye.
Farrelly,
Aye.
Lakin,
Aye.
Skylar,
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Meyer.
Aye.
All right, there you go, Michael and Chris.
Thank you very much. Have a
Good
good week.
Getting it all done. We look forward to seeing it.
Thank you.
All right, that takes us to policy matters. Item number 8 is the first one. Consideration of request by Stryker and Company to extend the closure of the half block of Laura Street between Clinton and the alley located halfway between Clinton and Charles. Preston?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. So Stryker is requesting a 6-month extension to the closure of North Laura Street, north of Clinton Street to the alley. And they've cited safety reasons as the impetus for the requested closure. And they've committed to the same traffic control plan that's been in place since the initial closure was granted back in October, I think it was. And then Mark Klutz has been kind enough to join us this evening to talk to this. Mark, I don't know if you have anything you'd like to add, but that's all I have, Mayor.
Okay, thanks, Preston. Mark, do you want to give us any additional information?
Sure. I think that it's been huge the approval you guys have given us. That you did give us in October that led us to now, as far as for access and safety for not only people on our project, but actually keeping vehicles from driving down passes. It's allowed us the opportunity to work a little more freely and safely. That said, we are requesting for 6 months with the plans that we should be able to open it sooner than that. That'll get us through the spring, through paving, the paving that we need to do on Laura Street, getting all of our structure up on the building without having to worry about cars coming down Laura as we're trying to lift, 50-foot trusses up off the side of the road, things of that nature. So that's why we are requesting the 6 months with the intent of being able to open it sooner than that. But that gets us through the spring, the paving plants reopening, and allowing us to pave the road and reopen at that point.
Hopefully that would get us close to completion of the project, eh?
That's the goal.
No promises, I understand. All right, what's the feeling of council? Questions, comments?
6 months, really? Yeah, it's fine. It's just frustrating.
As somebody who lives over there.
Mm-hmm.
I was going to defer to Beth's comments.
I also want to make sure anybody in the audience who has a question or comment has an opportunity to speak. I don't see anything. Anybody else on council have a take?
I guess the only question I would have is if we said 6 months, would that be 6 months effective from tomorrow, today? I know you're looking to complete before that, but what do we actually set as the final timeline for that 6 months?
Mark?
Is that a question for me? I'm sorry, I didn't want to jump on a turn.
Yeah, I
So
think
right now, our current closure ends Friday the 14th. I do believe Preston can probably confirm that. That's what I have in my memory and on my calendar. So I would say it would be July 14th if we went 6 months from today. That is when it would terminate. If you guys gave us the full 6 months. Again, I think by the time with our current schedule, current activities, we should be able to open up sooner than that. I'm hoping by the end of June, but have the closure through no later than July 14th. And similar to the previous people, we would not be coming back and asking for it again. If we got a 3-month extension at this point, I would probably be back here in 3 months asking you guys again.
What if we did to July 1st? Because I'm a little beyond me, but as we get to the summer season and start looking at potentially having concerts and whatnot, can we say July 1st?
That's a question.
Is that a question for me?
Yeah, well, I'm just,
Okay.
it's more of a general question to council, just because I start thinking about traffic flow in town in July versus in May and June.
You know, I could even say if we got it through June 14th, so 5 months, that would be significant for us. You're right. That's the one thing I was not thinking about is your traffic through July.
Yeah.
So if we could get a 5-month extension and get us into June, we should be able to work with the same. So we'd be gracious to get that.
Yeah, that was going to be my suggestion too, just given the difference that happens in town once we get into the summer months. I like the 5 months rather than the 6. I'd like to say 4, but realistically, we probably need to say 5.
Yeah, I wanted to say 4. But yeah, I think if we go for 5, I think that's just acknowledging your constraints, trying to do things safely and efficiently, but also what town tries to deal with as we go into summer.
We understand that.
What's everybody else think?
I'm good with 5.
Seems fair.
All right,
So do we need a motion?
we do.
I move to approve the extension of the temporary closure of Laura Street for an additional 5 months.
Second.
Okay, and to be clear, the record shows that that's until June 15th. Any other discussion? If not, can we have a roll call vote, please?
Council members Beck,
Aye.
Farrelly,
Aye.
Lakin,
Aye.
Skylar,
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Meyer.
Aye.
All right, thanks, guys. That gets us through that one. Good luck, Mark. Keep it up.
Thank you, council. Have a great night.
You too. That takes us to item number 9, resolution number 22-01, a resolution of the Town Council, Town of Ridgway, Colorado, amending the policy relative to noxious weed management. Preston, you want to kick it off, please?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. So I'll try to give some background. I know this is a sensitive and can be a controversial type topic. So back in 2003, the town council at the time adopted a resolution establishing a policy stating that the town shall not use toxic or poisonous chemical-based herbicides within town limits toward the control of noxious weeds, and that the use of non-toxic organic management practices shall be implemented. Fast forward a few years, 2011, the 2011 Town of Ridgway Integrated Weed Management Plan was enacted or adopted, providing for a protocol and recommendations for chemical treatment and application. But the town's pretty specific no spray, I'm using air quotations, you can't see me, but no spray policy is still on the books and really should be modified if council would like to provide for some flexibility and allow chemical-based herbicides to be applied in certain situations, toward the control of noxious weeds on public property within town limits. And I think it was back in June, we had Julie Kolb, Uray County Vegetation Management, and I think she's on here with us this evening. We start her video because I know she had tried earlier. She came in and gave a really interesting presentation about her department's weed control practices, the outlook for weeds in Ridgway. She showed some GIS maps depicting some weed infestations in various parts around town. Pretty clear an assertion's been made that the time has come to manage the weeds in Ridgway more aggressively. I've heard that from more than one person, although I've heard similar not similar comments, but I've heard comments to the contrary as well. I don't want to brush that aside. So as a result of that work session in June, there seemed to be consensus to modify the no spray policy to allow for chemical-based herbicide application when deemed necessary by town staff and Ridgway County vegetation management personnel. That was a specific note that I had written down as a result of that work session. I could have been wrong, but that's a motivation for revisiting this whole topic and making sure we're all on the same page. So staff is recommending that any treatment be in line with the protocol and recommendations for chemical treatment and application in that 2011 integrated weed management plan. So at the end of the day, staff has drafted a resolution to achieve just that. It would amend that 2003 no spray policy to more flexibility in addressing the noxious weeds located on town property. And again, the whole point in modifying the policy is to bring it in line with that integrated weed management plan. So long-winded, sorry about that. Hope that makes sense. Julie is here with Ridgway County Vegetation Management. I'll turn it back over to you, Mayor, as we continue this conversation.
Yeah, thanks, Preston. And I guess all I would want to add at this point is, in case anyone listening in on the meeting, attending virtually by Zoom, thinks that we're taking this change lightly or that we are not cognizant of the challenges of allowing noxious chemicals to be, or toxic chemicals to be used to apply to noxious weeds. It's not true. We totally get how big a deal this is. We just have been faced with the reality that given the manpower and the finances involved, we haven't had the resources to put a dent in our noxious weed problem. And it's a lot worse now than it was even a few years ago. That's what we've been hearing from Julie, and I might let Julie take it from there for now. And then I just want you to know, everybody listening, that we're not trying to ram this through. We're not trying to, do something that is going to endanger our population. We want to do this right, and we want to address all the concerns. But I'd like to have Julie take it from here at this point. Thanks, Julie.
Good evening, and I wanted to say thank you to the Ridgway Town Council for allowing me to be at this meeting today and talk. I am not proposing that the town of Ridgway use toxic chemicals. What I'm trying to propose here is a solution that maybe involves a little bit more integrated weed management. But I want to start out by saying that there's a difference in each and every chemical. I hate using that word, but there's a difference in each one of those on the market. They have different toxicity ratings. And what I'm hoping to achieve here is to open the discussion to use only herbicides from what we call the caution category. And that category in the caution category is deemed relatively non-toxic to non-toxic. So I am not proposing a change in that policy, only the potential to maybe use, maybe we could discuss the possibility of using maybe 5 of those, from that category that we all deem that would keep in line with your policy of not using toxic chemicals. Like I said, they are all very different and not all of them are toxic. I also did talk, I think at that last presentation, about the possibility of using what we call a little bit more of the organic herbicides. That's a possibility as well. I'm willing to share the information I have with you about a couple that we evaluated in San Miguel County that seem to have done a really good job. And I appreciate the concerns over using herbicides, but I just want to make that clear that not all of them are toxic.
Thanks, Julie. That's really helpful. I guess the best way to approach this, I mean, that's really helpful clarification. Preston, I might ask if you could address how, if and how the draft resolution in front of us tonight addresses that point that Julie just made about only allowing potentially much less harmful and not allowing any really totally toxic chemicals to be used. Is that
Sure.
correct?
So yeah, what I heard her say was only intends to use herbicides from, and I'm using air quotes again, but the cautious category, right, Julie?
Right.
There's more to it than that. The resolution doesn't specify that. We could certainly amend the resolution to specify that if council was comfortable with that. It's a little more general and broad, but really meant to capture the essence of what we were just talking about, especially what Julie was talking about.
Okay.
I have a question.
Yeah, go ahead, Beth.
I feel like our staff really does believe in the spirit of not wanting to spray and using herbicides and chemicals when necessary. Would it be possible or a terribly undue burden on staff? Because I know we have people who are concerned. If we approve something like this, where at some point during the year in a cycle where it's like, hey, these are the applications we did in the last year, or series of applications we did in order to control blank. Because we're doing this to control noxious weeds. We're not trying to just spray everything, right? So, in preserving native species is also of concern. And I think that's something we have to remember and balance with. Spraying is not necessarily something we all appreciate, but maintaining native vegetation instead of noxious weeds is the balance. But just in the sake of transparency that, hey, this is what we chose to spray for. Is that possible, or is that an undue burden on staff?
So Beth, maybe I just missed a question. I apologize, but
Is
least toxic is always the plan. And in my time here, no, staff doesn't apply any sort of chemicals or herbicides. It's all cutting and pulling.
Right. I'm saying if we approve this resolution and, in the spring, it's decided that we need to use a relatively non-toxic chemical on this area, right? Is there a way that we could document that in a spreadsheet over the course of the year so people are concerned we could show not just spraying the entire town?
Oh yes, 100%. We can certainly. I think that would be fairly easy.
I think that kind of. Yeah, I think that kind of splits the difference between concern and acting.
Transparency.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, can I just add something really quick too? Because I don't think this is something that most people, that I don't think most people know. But, let's table the discussion about herbicides for just a second here. Noxious weeds in of themselves, if you let them go in of themselves, are incredibly destructive to the environment. They are also connected to climate change issues, and they are connected to the need to list more and more animals on the endangered species list. And I can't emphasize that enough. And they are noxious weeds because they are, intentionally or sometimes unintentionally brought here. They are not part of a successional cycle of any kind whatsoever. And they are, I don't know how to phrase this other than this, but they are not supposed to be here. They are incredibly environmentally destructive. So I want to put that out there. Like I said, I understand people are concerned about herbicides. I just want to open this discussion so that we can, come to a resolution about, what we're going to use and whether that's, caution category or if that's a more organic approach. But this has really gotten out of hand. I've been here 2 years and I've seen an explosion
of weeds in the Ridgway area. I mean, really an explosion of them. So, you know, I'm glad to be opening the discussion at least a little bit.
Yeah.
Julie, what do you perceive as the efficacy of just using this particular group of, what'd you call them, cautious, I forget the term it was used. Will this dramatically improve the efficacy of your mitigation efforts?
Yes, absolutely. And, you know, this question comes up a lot. And I want to say that as a county weed manager, when I am out there, I am not just, you know, throwing a switch and broadly broadcasting herbicides all over the place. I mean, this is a targeted application and we're only spraying when there's something that we need to be spraying. It's not just a blanket drive down the road kind of thing and spray these herbicides. And when you see that truck on the roads, not only is there an herbicide in it, but we're talking about an incredibly diluted amount of that herbicide. You know, for example, milestone is one of those cautions I'm talking about, but that goes out at 7 ounces per acre. And that's it. And it goes out with 20 gallons of water per acre. So what you're seeing when we're on that county road is primarily water. So it is not, you know, a highly toxic sludge that's going out on the roadways or anything like that. And 90% of what I use is from the lowest 2 toxicity categories anyway.
Would any of those chemicals show up in water samples in the river or some other, you know, metric that we could see the negative effect of the use of the chemicals?
And I Tanya made a comment about this and I wanted to address that too. So thank you for asking me that. What I would do, you know, is we could choose from that caution category, but we would also choose from that category those herbicides that are not known to migrate in the soil. So I think that would be an extra precautionary step that we could take. Not all of them, I don't, you know, not all of them migrate in the soil. You know.
So something that I was wondering, and I'm sure that this would be in consideration when application was taking place anyway, but just as a way to, you know, make residents a little bit less concerned maybe is looking at, you know, weather forecast in terms of rain so that there's not a chance for runoff into the river, and maybe having a setback where it can't be applied within a certain foot distance of the river in terms of keeping that out of the waterway.
Yeah, so general practice is to try to apply these herbicides and look for windows. You don't want to be applying them when there's a chance of rain in the next 4 hours. Generally, they, as long as they're dry, it's not an issue. So, you know, if I apply an herbicide and 6 hours later there's a rain event, it's not an issue as long as that herbicide is dry. As far as the setbacks from the river corridor, all of the herbicides have a stipulation on them when you use them about basically how close you can come to river corridors with them. Some of them you can comply up to the river edge, some of them you can't. And so with the concern along the river, you know, that's certainly something we can address and say, hey, you know, we're gonna have a setback distance of, you know, X number of feet from the river corridor, and we can do that as well. And I'm perfectly happy to have that discussion, you know, if that will help alleviate some concerns.
And these are typically best practices that are recommended by the manufacturer, I would imagine.
Yes.
Guidelines.
Yep, and there's EPA rules about how they're used as well. Knowing what an important issue this is to everyone, and having heard Angela's comments at the beginning, Angela Haas, I want to open it up to anybody in the audience on Zoom here that wants to ask questions or make comments. Tanya?
Hi, thanks. Let's see, let me take my hand off. So I've sent emails before the meeting so that the council and staff understand some of my concerns or ideas, questions that I have about this. I just wanted to not reiterate those, but kind of clarify on public record a few of them. So as the communications coordinator for UWP, I've observed at UWP events and heard reports from government meetings about how severe the noxious weed situation has become in Ridgway and the county. Noxious weeds, as Julie said, are a problem for the watershed. They, take away water that more water than the native plants do, and cause a lot of other problems as well as clogging up waterways. So they do need to be addressed, but just the concern is not to replace one problem with another by possibly causing problems with chemical use. But there doesn't have to be problems with chemical use, depending on how they're used. And the consensus of the UWP board members who responded to my request about this topic was that the current weed situation is such that chemical-based herbicides, as Julie said, non-toxic or as low toxic as possible, are necessary right now to make sure those invasive species are controlled better. And they're confident that the guidelines that the pesticide applicator's license requires will lead to the safe use of those. On the other hand, though, I have heard, and then also one of the residents said that she believes in 2011 that the town resolution did allow for some of this chemical-based herbicide use, so that shouldn't be a problem. And now to the, however, I heard from a couple UWP volunteers who are in the field and outside looking at the environment quite often, that they have not observed evidence of other remediation of weed issues through seeding and revegetation of areas that have experienced erosion or soil disturbance, natural erosion or construction activities, so that they had concern that they would, and not just Ridgway, but other areas as well, that they hope that there would be more effort into making sure that when land is disturbed, that it's reseeded or somehow treated so that it wouldn't be as attractive to noxious weeds. And so I'm just hoping, and I guess the people who are more concerned that I would talk to are hoping that there'd be continued or increased effort by the town and the county to try and put time into alternative use, alternative herbicide use, organics and biological controls. Chavano Conservation District is doing a pilot study right now. Maybe we can learn from them. They're doing it on spotted knapweed and thistle, which are two big problems in our area. And I really like the idea that Beth said of being transparent with information. And so for those people who still are concerned just because they do not like chemical use, if there could possibly be reports either in advance, but when they're scheduled, so that people know where it's going to happen and so that they can avoid those areas, or just know that that's where it is. And if in advance is not possible due to staff time, then at least some kind of, I don't know, biannual or whatever reporting of where that happens so that people understand. That's
Anya? Yeah. I don't know if you're talking about reporting in terms of what I do, but I just want to let you know that I am aware of some chemically sensitive individuals in the area. The Colorado Noxious Weed Act basically mandates that if I'm going to apply on property that just abuts the property in which they live on, then that's a very specific designation, that if it abuts their property, that I have to give them adequate notice, 24 hours or more notice that I'm going to be making an application there. What I do is this: I tell those individuals every single solitary day where I'm going to be. And that's everywhere in the county, not just property abutting theirs. So I have really reached out to those individuals and been very transparent with that about where I am. If I'm in a public setting, there are rules regarding the posting requirements and how long I have to leave signs up and things of that nature. So, I would work with the town council, to get the word out. If an application was going to be in a very public place one day, one of the parks or something like that. So that notice would go out.
Cool, very nice. It's great.
Excuse me, in the interest of transparency and probably to preempt misinformation or concerns by the public, I wonder if we could post or have Julie or somebody put together a FAQ sheet that highlights some of the points that you made that could help educate those who might have specific concerns. And maybe we post that on our website or along with an announcement of when and where spraying might occur. So, something that would help keep the phone call volume down to town hall.
I have a presentation that I actually prepared for the meeting tonight, which I didn't present because I wanted to make sure that I was, within the time frame here. But I'm happy to forward that to Preston. Talks about the toxicity of, some of those caution herbicides. I only put 2 on there for the moment. I can always go back and put specific ones if we discuss that and make that a resolution that we want to use specific ones. I can go back and put those on there. But I have it, and it talks about the toxicity rating of those herbicides and compares them to some things that people use like table salt on a daily basis, and the toxicity of that versus the toxicity of the things that I'm proposing for using. So I will happily forward that to Preston, so you can post that where you need to.
But the FAQ sheet might include some of the comments that John made, about, our sincere beliefs and efforts and understanding, and that, we're not doing this, haphazardly. And, we could compose a little narrative that gets out in front of this, I think.
Yeah, thanks, Terry. I see another hand up in the audience, Robin.
Hi, and I just want to, for the record, just say I have the utmost respect and confidence in Julie in her work. I have attended her webinars and actually walked property with her, and she has been a great resource in my work in my neighborhood in trying to mitigate noxious weeds. So just a call out of thanks to Julie. We're grateful to have you in the county. And Mayor Clark, I was really grateful also to hear you just acknowledge that due to limited labor and finances, we have arrived at this situation. Because the comment I really wanted to make tonight was, having done a quick scan of that 2011 integrated weed management plan, I was going to ask the questions if in fact the goals and the recommended implementation measures, objectives and techniques that are on pages 14 through 18 had actually been adhered to, because I don't believe we would be in the dire situation we are now if our, not only our government, but our community, because this is really a community effort, right, had really taken that implementation plan and actually implemented it, right? So I guess I just want to acknowledge for the record that it's not that it's that these components of the plan have not been actualized. It's not that they don't work necessarily, although Julie and I constantly go back and forth about certain things really, are better dealt with through chemical treatments. So just stating that, because I do feel like we have an opportunity to address some of these through mechanical means, but because we have not, we are in this dire situation. So in keeping with that, if council decides to go ahead and adopt this resolution, I would just like to ask that in that transparency and record keeping, that we evaluate if what Julie proposes and town council agrees to is in fact effective. What I don't want to have happen is to have year after year be treating the same weeds in the same places with chemicals. I, as a person who is an organic grower of food and cares about all people, but specifically little people, and how susceptible they are to harm from chemicals, I really would want to be sure that we are knowing that it's being effective, and whenever we can get volunteers and staff out there doing what we know can have an impact, to do that instead of applying chemicals. And just last but not least, I want to throw out just a great thank you to Danny Powers for all his years of service to this community and how well he addressed weeds in our community.
Yeah, Danny was a stalwart of our non-toxic approach for sure. And thank you, Robin. I think your comments are really spot on. I don't know how many of you took the time to read all 55 pages of the integrated weed management and native plant restoration document from 2011. But interestingly, although the resolution from 2006 states that we're not going to use toxic chemicals, the plan itself doesn't say that. It says that we'll use whatever means necessary to deal with the problems. We'll create an application procedure if and when chemicals need to be used. And I think Robin is spot on that we actually didn't adequately implement this plan. And I think it's mostly because of both financial and physical manpower resources. And it's one of the questions that Tanya brought up in her emails to me earlier this week. And I quite honestly am a little embarrassed that we didn't do a better job of implementing this in the last 10 years, because I think we wouldn't be here if we had. But as somebody on the other hand who's attended weed pulling events and seen a handful of people show up, that's the challenge, right? The town staff can't do it alone. It's a community issue, as Robin said. The community needs to step up, especially if the community doesn't want us to use chemicals. We need everyone who feels that way and others to step up and take part in mechanical efforts. And I think Julie would probably go on to say, we're past that point where we can do that exclusively and put a dent in the problem. So I'm afraid we're probably going to have to pass this resolution and stipulate just how restrictive we're going to be on which chemicals can be used and how and when. And I was really glad to hear Tanya say that her board is in agreement with that policy, at least to the people who responded, and that they felt like the existing, whether it's EPA or state CDPHE regs addressing this kind of thing should protect us. I understand, like Angela Haas at the beginning of the meeting saying she's just against this idea. Well, it's more complicated than that. I'm against, malathion and some of the more really toxic chemicals. Roundup, gosh, my God, Roundup used to be considered, relatively safe, and we all know now that it wasn't, and it's not being used anymore. At least I don't think many applicators are using it. That may not be, I don't know. I'm not an expert on this stuff, but and I'm rambling, but I think the point is, I don't know that we have the luxury of saying we just are not going to allow the use of chemicals anymore, at least, and we can revisit it if we can get ahead of the game. And like in the plan, it states a goal of 10% eradication per year. If we can actually achieve that, then in 5 or 10 years, we can go back to being non-toxic, probably, if we also at the same time continue to get the community to step up and do mechanical treatments with us. So that's my soapbox. I also would, Tanya mentioned the email she sent. There's some great points in there. She did a great job of sort of summarizing her concerns and the concerns of people who are aware of our waterways and their potential impacts to those. She stated some questions. I'll forward her emails because I think they're really helpful. They're very respectful, and I think we all need to read them. And I urge you all to read the management plan, because I think if we actually follow that plan, we could turn this thing around. So sorry to ramble.
I just want to add too that the county is for 2022 is doing a mechanical program as well.
Well, we need to join forces to do that. So kudos to the county to do that. And definitely, as I'll second what Robin said, kudos to you, Julie, for coming on board with us and making the efforts you're making and doing the job you're doing on all levels, educating the public, informing people who are chemically sensitive, and doing your all to deal with the noxious weed problems. So
hey, Mayor Clark, before you take Kevin's hand, can I just quickly ask, because I'm a doer type of person, so this notion of volunteers and community efforts, how can we talk just briefly, or maybe staff can come up with a way of implementing that And, you know, I can certainly say I can probably get some Great Old Broads for Wilderness to help. And I suspect Tanya can pull some of her members. You know, so if we know enough in advance, and especially if we have a consistent plan, you know, like the first Saturday every month from 10 to noon, we're just going to do this. And, and Julie tells us where the location is, you know.
Yep.
But if it doesn't get organized before the spring season comes up, it's not going to happen.
Well, I'm not sure right now is the time to do that, but I totally agree with you that we need to do that. And I think that we can direct staff, and I'll definitely take part in working with Julie and trying to create just exactly what you're talking about, a regular plan to get people to come out and walk the talk. You know, if they don't want us to spray, they gotta come out and help us pull. And I think we have to start with the comment that Julie started with, it in that she's not planning to just go out and start spraying crazily everywhere tomorrow. It's only in the cases where the areas are just too far gone to manage even physically and mechanically. So I think a coordinated communication effort and an effort to get the community that doesn't want to see us using chemicals to come out and take part in handle it mechanically. So let me take some more comments. Kevin, go ahead.
Oops. Hi, this is actually Joan. I don't
Joan.
know
Hi,
how
Joan.
to make, no, I just don't know how to make Kevin's name go away.
It's okay.
Sorry about that.
No,
I
no.
just wanted to mention that with regard to noxious weeds, we have some thistle issues up in Vista Terrace, and we have been really good about mechanically taking care of that. But I have to say that we've been a little bit more lax the last year and a half. So just know that there are several people here in the Vista Terrace community that take care of that, especially thistle. I'm not sure about anything else at the moment, but that's something that we have taken care of in the past, and we'll continue to do that. So
Great,
just
good to know. Thanks, Joan. Sue Hush. Go ahead, Sue.
Sorry, couldn't get the unmute and the lower the hand thing happening at the same time. Angela and I, we're just gonna, I'm sure, speak to the Parks Committee as well. And the Parks, Trails, and Open Space would definitely jump on the bandwagon of this as well. So Preston, we're with you on this. Thanks.
Thanks, Sue. Anyone else? You know, I just would again say none of us are excited to see us have to change the resolution. Like I say, we're not actually changing the weed management and native plant restoration plan. We're actually just having a edit of a resolution that makes us more able to follow that plan, I think. But you know, I think a lot of us were very proud for many years with Danny's help to be able to say we have a resolution that says we're not going to use toxic chemicals to treat our weeds. And I think we can get back to that if we do a good enough job dealing with it now that we're so far behind the 8 ball. So any other comments from council? Where do you want to go with this, guys?
I think what we've heard is that nobody really wants to do chemicals, but the consensus is that using the cautious chemicals and as low toxicity as possible in order to get ahead of this seems to be what everybody here is trying to get on the board with, and commitment we're getting from Parks and Open Spaces and Great Old Broads and hopefully the community, more of the community as well. I think that we should probably go ahead and do this, and with the intent that hopefully, as you said, John, if we get ahead of this, that we won't have to do that in the future, and that may be a pipe dream, but again, nobody wants to do this willy-nilly, and it sounds as though Julie and the plan she has is to manage this and use this as sparingly as possible, and I'm supportive of that.
I guess
Go
the
ahead.
only thing I would ask is, do we want, if we're going to consider a motion to approve the resolution 22-01, do we want to amend it to include a more, or a less general reference to what chemicals will actually allow to be used? Or are we okay with having it be kind of general and directed towards the plan that we have?
I think it needs to be more general and directed towards the plan we have. If our goal is to do this, get on top of our weed problem and move on, I think we're gonna have to put our trust in Julie and our town staff that we have made our wishes clear, that this is not our ideal situation, but we are balancing our noxious weed problem with our desire not to spray. I've heard Julie say multiple times, and I guess we could put in the cautious to more cautious rating that she said, but I don't know. My inclination is to trust our staff.
And whether it's imposed as a condition for approving this or not, I like the idea of, the transparency of the documentation and possibly the monitoring aspect of it. If there's a way to, somehow document the effect of it. I don't know exactly what that looks like. And I don't know if it warrants a condition for approval here, but it's certainly a good idea.
Yeah, I can agree with that. We may actually look at having Julie come back maybe on an annual basis and say, well, we did this and it's working or it's not, and something to that effect.
With demonstrable metrics, rather than anecdotes, some sort of measurement of some sort or monitoring. I don't know. Again, I don't know what that looks like. I don't want to be overly burdensome in that, but there has to be something that is transparent as to its effectiveness.
Well, I think we can direct staff to work with Julie to create at least an annual report that has details and is explicit about just exactly what's been done and how much success there's been in it. And I think that's a great idea.
Should that be a condition of approval here, or is that just?
I don't think it needs to be.
Okay.
Personally, it's up to you guys.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think it needs to be part of it, but I think it's something that we'd like to have set up to monitor this as a council.
And this time of year is kind of ideal for that. January, February, how did last year go? It's not the busy season. What do we need to do come spring? It's a good check-in.
I agree.
I'd also be curious to hear from Bo if there's any potential liability issues with us passing this. If this opens us up to potential litigation in the future, something like that.
No, Terry, not generally speaking. We're operating under, the advice that we're getting from the Uray County weed manager. We're operating with chemicals that have been approved. And so it's not a situation that we're doing anything that I would say is creating any sort of liability. We're acting within the bounds of the law, and we're having the application done by someone in this license to do it.
Perfect. Thank you.
All righty then. Someone want to make that difficult motion?
Hold on. I don't have the number.
2201.
I move to approve resolution 22-01. Second.
All right, motion's been made by Beth, seconded by Angela. Roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Beck,
Aye.
Farrelly,
Aye.
Lakin,
Aye.
Skylar,
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Meyer.
Aye.
All right, thanks, everyone. A good discussion and a good example of how, oh, I just see Dana's hand was up. Dana, were you hoping to comment on this? I didn't see your hand until now.
I just want to make one comment. I came in a little bit late. I apologize. Have you thought about using insects? Because I've used them very successfully with thistle. really successfully on my ranches with thistle. They're amazing, and it's not a chemical. And I also want to say I have used pesticides. I understand where everyone's coming from, but when I use them, I unfortunately a lot of times am spraying bees because bees love thistle. It's really sad. I feel really guilty when I'm doing that. But if I think you should look into insects.
Tanya brought it up to her credit. The Palisade Insectary, I think is how you say that. They are doing a pilot program. Where was it, Tanya? In somewhere north of us.
It's in the Gunnison Basin. I didn't look at which locations they're doing it.
So we're definitely going to explore that for sure.
Thistle weevils really, really, really work. Now, white top and leafy spurge, white top is everywhere in town. And people think it's pretty. People I talk to go, oh, it's such a pretty little plant. So I don't know about those, but I think you should look into insects as well as having to use poison.
We will. Thank you.
One last comment, please, since the insect came up, if you don't mind.
Go ahead, Julie.
I am aware of the insectary and I try to use biological controls whenever I can, but there is a certain minimum patch size that these insects need to survive and to reproduce to the following season and to take out the noxious weed population. And it is generally the consensus with all the scientists and even the people at the insectary that these biological insects will never completely eliminate any weed species or weed population. And I tried desperately to get some of the muskweevil thistles for an individual in San Miguel County. I've been on that list with them for more than a year and have not been able to receive the agents. I don't know if that's a staff issue or, if it's just a COVID related issue, but I just wanted to point out that, those are not always possible for every situation. And it really depends on the extent of the infestation that you have.
Yeah, I think your point, Julie, is that's why they call it integrated pest management, or whether it's pest management or weed management. It takes an integrated effort of all mechanical, biological, chemical, the whole 9 yards. And if you do it well, you address all those things. So thanks, everybody. Good discussion, difficult one, but I think we're doing the right thing. Move on to item number 10, discussion of direction regarding gray water use in Ridgway. Preston. Actually, you know what? I need a 5-minute bio break. So we're going to take a 5-minute bathroom break. Be right back. Let's see, 7:30, right on the dot. We're starting. Okay.
Okay, thanks.
Just looked at it and didn't know what to do. So I did nothing. Yes. I can try.
All right. If you go to bed before I'm done.
Yeah.
I don't think so.
Oh, I should change the sheet. Well, I guess if you brought your pillows in and stuff, but no, I'll sleep. We'll sleep. We'll do it on the weekend. Nope. Nope. No, but you won't get my illness by sleeping on the. Not according to the pink spray.
Okay, it's 7:30. I see three of us. We all back? Let's see, we're waiting for Terry. I think we can get started anyway. Preston, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
All right, you want to kick off the gray water discussion?
Oh, yes. Yeah, thanks, Mayor. So there's quite a bit of information in that memo before you. Staff spent a substantial amount of time looking into this. I really hope that you all had a chance to kind of delve into what's in the memo and then Regulation 86. At the end of the day, to allow gray water use, local jurisdictions have to opt in, meaning they have to adopt an ordinance or resolution to allow gray water use within their respective jurisdiction by developing a gray water control program that meets the requirements of Regulation 86. Regulation 86 is attached to the memo. Some really great, really detailed information in there on those standards and requirements. It has numerous requirements, in some cases making it more burdensome than it is in other states. For example, I'm going to try to avoid just regurgitating everything in the memo, so just bear with me. But to use gray water indoors, for example, a home or an office needs a dual plumbing system with one set of pipes carrying treated drinking water and the other set carrying gray water. Even new developments don't typically incorporate these dual pipe systems because they're expensive, quite frankly, and to retrofit an older existing home or office building could be costly as well. There's only a handful of local governments that I've been able to pinpoint, at least in the state of Colorado, that have moved forward with an ordinance that has been relayed to the Water Quality Control Commission. So they've adopted a gray water control program that meets the requirements of Regulation 86. A few of them are described in the memo: Pitkin County, City of Denver, City of Golden. But I haven't been able to pinpoint if there have been any takers, meaning any folks who have actually met the requirements of Regulation 86, had their system inspected, and now they have a legally established gray water use system. I do want to emphasize it's there in the memo, but the state's planning a series of meetings at some point in 2022. They were initially planned for 2020 and were put off because of the pandemic. The whole point of those public input sessions is to examine how the program or regulation might be changed to broaden its appeal. I suspect there's going to be quite a bit of interest from folks around the state in joining those meetings to provide their input and what they think about that regulation and how burdensome it is. That's just a suspicion on my part. So in the end, looking for some direction from council regarding gray water use in Ridgway, given all the requirements and standards in Regulation 86 for gray water use for non-drinking purposes. I guess that's my spiel, but happy to answer any questions or help this conversation along.
Yeah, thanks, Preston. Did everybody have a chance to read the staff report on this? Yeah, it's a handful, and Preston and I had a short discussion about it last week, and my take was what we really should be doing, along with pushing the state on this stakeholder process to discuss Rule 86 and how to Regulation 86 and how to fix it, would be to, through Preston's role on the CML policy committee, put some pressure on the state legislature to fix regulation.
This is something that CC4CA may be interested in advocating for. I know Pitkin County, I know Denver, those cities, those municipalities and counties that Preston mentioned are on that group as well.
Great.
So I can check in with them and see where they're at on that regulation.
That'd be great. I'd appreciate that, Beth. I think, in short, my take is, in terms of the direction requested at the end of the staff report, I mean, Russ, you've been a real champion of this idea since you've been on council, and I think we all are in complete agreement that anything we can do to alleviate our potential water issues, and gray water seems like a relatively easy potential win, although I totally get that there's lots of ramifications in terms of public health and all that. I think the state really needs to go back to the drawing board and revisit this regulation so that it's actually able to be adopted by municipalities like ours. But other than that, what's everybody's take in terms of specifically the direction requested? I think eventually we want to opt in on this, right?
Yeah, I think so. And in looking through this, there's a lot of information in this report. It was a lot to try and digest. The only thing I saw that I agree with you, the state needs to go back and rework this a bit. But the only thing, and with my limited understanding of what I was pulling out of here, that might be a possibility would be using essentially the laundry to landscape function, and then using a mulch basin irrigation system. Looked to be the only one that really was relatively easy to install, and it would also be a matter of people understanding what the requirements of that were and how it could be used. It stated that you couldn't use that on food you were producing, but it sounds like on general trees, landscape trees, and maybe yards would be the only potential use out of it at this point, if I understood that correctly.
And I agree. I think we all know how summertime irrigation is a big issue in Ridgway. The cost of water and the increase in the last few years has driven some people to not take care of their yards as much with water. And some of us, like myself, just pay for a lot more in water in order to have a nice yard. But the laundry to landscape thing seems to make a whole lot of sense. And I think you're right. I think potentially the infrastructure in-house required for it is a whole lot less onerous than some of the other things. I don't know.
Yeah, if I can add something right there, Mayor. Russ, really good point. Laundry to landscape, based on what I read and what I've learned, seems like the much easier system to implement. Although there is, some plumbing required, and then, the tank has to adhere to whatever, or the design of the tank has to adhere to the regulation, what have you. I checked, I mentioned the city of Golden. I think when they adopted the ordinance, I didn't ever hear back from anyone to confirm, but they only adopted the provision specific to the landscape or laundry to landscape categories, if you will, for residences and businesses, which I thought was interesting. That's what I think they did, but again, I never really confirmed that. And then I never heard back on how many residents of Golden have applied for a gray water use permit and then gone through the whole construction process and inspection process. Another thing to note is Mike Gill is fantastic at what he does, but he has in the realm of plumbing, that's not his forte. So once a town moves forward with this, we'll definitely have to look to outside help to inspect these systems, which is, a cost to the town, negligible, I would say, but still a cost to the town to make sure that they're done right and according to state statute.
Right, and the reason I pulled out this particular one, laundry or landscape with the mulch basin irrigation, is that does not require a tank from what I read today. And so, one of the reasons I've been pushing this is because our water costs so much, because people want nice yards and landscape, and it's just a way to defer some of that costs and use what we're already paying for, essentially. And to do it as low cost as possible. So if you don't have to actually go out and buy a tank. Now, what's required to actually implement the mulch basin irrigation system, I was not totally clear on, but that seemed to be the lowest cost method that I saw in this thing. And so that's the direction, given the statutes as the way they are, that I would like to maybe get some more information on and potentially pursue.
Certainly the reasons that are cited by Douglas County don't seem very attractive, or the objections that they have are all good points. And the tank, I guess the tankless approach alleviates or mitigates the 24-hour storage issue.
Yeah, it's really, the whole thing is extremely onerous. And
yeah,
again, while I get that they're valid public health concerns, it just seems like it's really over the top. Well, I guess what I'm hearing is that council would like staff to look into at least starting the process of opting in, at the very least, figuring out how we might implement the laundry to landscape portion, and then at the same time on a parallel track, to what degree possible. I can do it through my contacts at CML, and Preston can do it as the policy liaison, to just really put the pressure on the state legislature to go back to the drawing board on this and clean it up and make it more usable.
Yeah, I agree completely with that. I mean, I think we're kind of on the forefront of a lot of stuff with our community. It'd be nice to be ready to act when the state kind of has a clearer picture of what they're going to do with this.
Separate from this issue, I wonder if the town can help promote or encourage rainwater catchment. We're allowed up to 110 gallons per household in Colorado, and I take advantage of half of that currently, and it almost satisfies my limited irrigation needs. But I wonder if we could somehow encourage that or incent it, or I don't know what else we could do, but maybe be a source of aggregated purchasing for them.
Great idea.
I'm spitballing here, but
Yeah,
But
no, I
that's
think-
another, if part of the objective is to conserve water, that's another way to do it. I mean, that's water that hits your roof that otherwise just, goes down the sewer for the most part.
Yep, and I think it's another place where we could advocate with the state legislature to loosen that up again a little more. I know there was a lot of, for years it was totally illegal. It was considered against people's water rights, but you look at what the snow melt in my yard, it goes into the ground. It doesn't ever get to the Uncombogre. So how I'm impacting somebody's water rights is impossible to understand. So I think we should lobby them to increase the number of gallons we can keep.
Well, also in terms of incentivizing, I wonder if there's some sort of a grant opportunity to get a grant to potentially, purchase that bulk bunch of rain barrels that we can make available to our community. Or I don't want to get too far in the weeds on this, but
no, it's not relevant to the gray water exactly, but it's a good point, and I think it's something we should put on our list, our long list, right, Preston?
I'm also wondering, I had that same thought about grants, but in terms of if we can come up with a manageable system on this in order to help promote the concept of gray water, and if we can actually get to something that appears to be a reasonable solution for homeowners to help do this, that we may leverage a grant to help promote that as well.
Yep, makes sense.
It's a water conservation move at the end of the day, so there's got to be somebody supportive to that from the funding agencies.
Yep.
Funk.
Mayor Clark, is this open to public comment at all?
Somebody asked if we're open for public comment, John.
Yeah, go ahead, Jennifer.
Yeah, so I've been speaking with people at La Plata County as well as San Miguel County about their interests in gray water. And I just thought it might be useful to share what I've found. So Molly Morris in La Plata County, she works for the program 4Core, and she's their program manager, and they've submitted a grant that through the Colorado Water Conservation Board. And they just submitted it, and it's for a laundry to landscape ordinance and pilot project. And so I don't know if that's something that the town could consider piggybacking on if they get approval. They're hoping to know in the next, I think, month or so. But to know that that's happening not too far from here, as well as they're hoping to do something that's similar to what the city of Bolden has done. So you can see on their website, and at Preston, it sounds like you've looked at that as well. But they're hoping to do something similar, which was to, I think, incentivize people through their pilot program to give it a try. And I know that Chris Holstrom in San Miguel County is also very interested in seeing how the grant goes in La Plata, to see if they together can move something through and kind of share resources and effort in kind of bringing it to this area. So I thought that might be useful to share that there are grants available through the Water Conservation Board.
No, that's great, Jennifer. Thanks. I think we'd definitely be interested in piggybacking any way we could.
Yeah.
Preston, you might want to put that on your list of things to explore. Like I said before, your long list. And have we given you enough a direction on what you requested in the staff report on this?
Yeah, I think so, but I'll give a go at maybe just making sure we're on the same page. Certainly heard, advocate at, a variety of levels that the legislature, Water Quality Control Commission, whoever it really is, consider amending it, the Regulation 86 to be a little more realistic and easier for folks to make these gray water control use systems happen. I didn't know that about La Plata County, and our internet was going out a little bit, but what I heard was that they passed an ordinance or exploring a pilot program with incentives through available grant funding. Certainly look into that. I guess to round out what I heard, I mean, is there any interest in revisiting this topic several months down the line once more research has been done, or was there something different than that?
I think what I heard was that if there was possibility of starting the process that I think what you called the opt-in process for Regulation 86, at least for the laundry to landscape portion of it. I don't know. I looked at the Regulation 86, but to be honest, I didn't read the whole thing word for word. I don't know if there's the ability in there to sort of cherry pick portions of it. But if there is, there's definitely an interest in trying to implement the laundry to landscape portion of it as soon as possible. It's not a rush. It's just I think we all consider it a priority.
Okay, yeah, the opt-in would require the formal ordinance and the creation of that program. So we can certainly start on that.
I think it's worth taking a look at that between you and Bo, and if you guys feel like it's a little premature until we know more, until we find out whether the stakeholder involvement process with the state is going to potentially streamline some of Regulation 86 for us, and we want to wait until that happens, that's fine by me. I don't know, Russ, what do you think?
I'm sorry, run that by again, John. I'm sorry.
Are you feeling like it's okay for staff to kind of not sit back, but take a month or two to do some research and figure out what may happen at the state level in terms of streamlining the process? Or do you think we should try to go ahead and start the process of creating the ordinance that would opt us in, and at least to be able to do the laundry to landscape portion of it?
I don't feel that we have to start today on that, but I think there's probably a little more research and a little bit of time that we could maybe work with CML and the state boards, whoever, to try and figure this out and make it something that's digestible for everybody and easy to implement.
Okay.
I don't want to get the cart too far ahead of the horse here in jumping in before I don't think we totally have it sorted out on exactly what it would take to do at this point. So I think a little bit of time and nailing that down would be good, and approaching it from the laundry to landscape.
Okay.
And I think seeing what happens with La Plata County and how their approval process goes, we may be able to avoid some of the pitfalls of dealing with, the certification process. If we, wait, what does their regulation look like? What are their, and we can revise from there.
If I could add that, I know that San Miguel County is kind of waiting in the wings to see what happens with the grant in La Plata County. And then they're hoping to move forward once they see how that goes as well.
I think that sounds good. We need to, I guess, let staff talk to both folks at La Plata County and Chris Holsterman at San Miguel County, and just let them know that we're very interested in what they're doing and would love to piggyback on their efforts if at all possible, right?
Yeah. Forward you the information that I have as well, if that's helpful.
Great. That'd be awesome. Thanks, Jennifer. So is that good on that one, Preston?
Yes, sir. That was great. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. We're always putting more stuff on your list. I know that. All right, so that takes us to, well, actually, let's see. Is there anybody else in the audience that wanted to weigh in on this gray water question? I see Joan's hand up.
Yes, John, I was just curious. I had a couple quick questions, and forgive me, I don't know enough about gray water. So if these are questions that are
Go ahead.
not applicable. But I was wondering what our current, what the town currently does in dealing with gray water. I'll list off the ones that I was thinking about. What do we do currently with regard to gray water? And do we have an overabundance of gray water, or how is that being addressed? And then I did hear Preston say that possibly a use permit. I do know that in the future, the Ranch History Museum on the acreage across from Town Hall, as well as I believe the Railroad Museum has discussed this in the past, but we would be interested in being able to access some of that gray water for landscape irrigation and taking care of some of the orchard and other projects that we have that we're planning on doing eventually on that 10-acre parcel.
Okay, well, to try and answer your questions, and Preston, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe at this time, by state law, no one can use gray water. Gray water being water that comes from your domestic water use, coming from your dishwasher, your washing machine, your shower, your toilet, even. Gray water is anything that's not treated water coming out of your house.
Okay.
And it's just simply not legal to use that in any way unless you go through this new process they've created. And each portion of each source of gray water in your home, whether it be your washing machine or your shower, has different regulations about how or if it could potentially be used if treated properly. That's why laundry landscape is the low-hanging fruit, because your laundry is basically your clothes and the water that comes out of your washing machine when you wash them. Even your shower has potential for having fecal matter and E. coli and all that, so it has to be.
And there is a difference between gray water and black water.
Okay, I'm not up on that, but black water is purely sewer water, I would imagine.
Yeah, black water is anything that contains urine, feces, toilet paper, that sort of thing.
Okay. But like I say, even shower water, which some people consider gray water, is potentially, it's probably the best example of gray water that's not black, but still has potential health impacts. And to answer your question, John, that, do we have a surplus of gray water? I mean, I think all of us would like to be able to use some of the water that is just going down the drain and into the river that's not unhealthy, to be able to use to like you say, water our landscaping and our orchards and our plants. So at this point, the only way you can do that legally is to go through this regulation 86 and create the structure in the town ordinance to do that. And it's very onerous at this point. I mean, the goal is good, and up until now, it simply wasn't possible at all in the state of Colorado. So at least we're moving in the right direction, but there's a lot more needs to be done to make it really doable. Hopefully that answers your questions.
Yeah, does that have to go through the treatment plant before, or how does that, I don't quite know how that all works.
No,
Okay.
Gray water is just water that comes out of some portion of your drain system in your house.
So John, can I just jump in? Joan,
Yeah,
you'd
go ahead.
mentioned that
The science teacher, go for it.
Yeah.
we would like to have some of that gray water. Gray water is not something that's ever going to be piped around town. Gray water it's used on the property where it is produced. So
I see.
it would be for irrigation at homes. Now, the museum, generally what you're going to have a lot more of is black water, toilet facilities and those types of things. So in some ways, yes, we all think there is a surplus of gray water because we're just putting it down the drain and putting it through our water treatment plant instead of applying it to yards. But no, it's not something that we're going to be moving around town. It's not going to be a resource that's just available for purchase.
Okay. Okay. Sounds good. Well, I didn't know, even with it going through, and if it goes into the ground and then percolates, eventually we're going to get some of it anyway over at the 10-acre parcel. But
yes, exactly.
But I just was curious on exactly how that worked. Thanks so much for your explanation.
You're welcome. Thank you. Anything else on this item? All right, moving along, we are at review and action on intergovernmental agreement between the town of Ridgway, the city of Uray, and Uray County for shared victim advocate services. Preston.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor. This one's pretty, or for most of you should look familiar, pretty straightforward, same as it ever was kind of thing. It's the annual IGA between the town, the city of Uray, and Uray County for the use of an employee of the town of Ridgway to provide victim advocacy services to the three jurisdictions I just named. The IGA is for calendar year 2022, and it largely remains the same from as the IGA from last year, except the term has been updated to reflect the current year, and then each jurisdiction's financial contribution is a lot lower than last year based on the additional grant funding received. Shout out to Elaine and Shane on that. If I remember right, each agency's contribution is under $200 this year, so which is remarkable.
Yeah, it's great.
So I have a question. Why, since this is a shared service and the county, which is kind of an umbrella over the other two municipalities, why are we seeking to have this to manage this employee, or is it being requested of us by the other organizations, the other municipalities?
So Elaine Wood is is an employee of the town, and she serves in the victim advocate role and has for a number of years now. So that it had been memorialized. I don't know, John, help me out. When did the program start?
I wish I could tell you a date. It's been in place for at least 3 or 4 years, maybe more. I mean, the way my brain works, if I think it's 3 or 4, it's probably 5, 6, or 7.
2018 looks like. Yeah.
Okay, so we're approaching 4 years. The reason it's under the town of Ridgway is just because as in so many cases, we kind of just stepped up and said we're happy to. This was during Jen Coates's tenure, and she's like, we got a space for somebody to have a desk in the marshal's office, and we'll take it on for now. I think your question points to something that Preston and I have talked about a number of times, which is that it probably makes more sense to have the job based in the county sheriff's office, as, like you say, the kind of umbrella law enforcement agency of the county. I would imagine that Sheriff Perry would, counter that his budget and his resources are probably as limited or more than ours, and that I'm not sure whether or not they've even been asked if they're interested. I think at one point we did ask them if they wanted to take it on, and they were like, correct me if I'm wrong, Preston, but I think they basically said, since you've been on board, you guys been doing a great job, keep it up. It certainly you could argue that it makes more sense to be housed in the county sheriff's office, but I'm not sure it makes a huge difference.
Well, one thing you just said in that is that they didn't have the funds necessarily to manage this. Does that mean that, I see here under item B, that the town shall be responsible for all employment related expenses mandated by state, federal law, et cetera? Are we taking on additional costs that are outside of that which is being cost shared? In other words, is this a cost burden to us that would fall to the county if they were to take it on?
Preston?
So, yeah, I mean, I don't want to call it a burden at all, but I mean, Elaine is a formal employee of the town, regular part-time employee of the town, with limited benefits. I'd have to pull the employment agreement. So, hopefully that answers your question, but yeah, the town administers this full program, including not housing, but having a place at town hall for Elaine to work, and meet her needs or resources, et cetera.
So
There's
and that's,
probably-
it costs us more than it does the other municipalities.
Yes, that's fair to say.
It's probably not a huge cost, but I think what you're saying is that there's an administrative cost where the town is dealing with her, potential unemployment insurance, things like that, salary related issues, expenses.
And the reason, part of the reason I asked is I was approached by someone that'll remain nameless, asking that very question. Why isn't this the responsibility of the county, or why doesn't this fall in the county's court rather than ours? And would it be more effective if it was managed by the county rather than us? And, in terms of the success or the efficacy of the function itself, since it requires oversight by the three law enforcement departments. And the sheriff's office has seniority, I believe, seniority over our law enforcement functions. It seems pretty logical that it should fall under that umbrella. And I'm not trying to rock the boat here. I'm just asking a basic question.
Well, I think one of the things you said there raises a question for me. I mean, that it might be, how did you put it? Better managed or that the program would be more successful somehow if it were under the county's auspices. I don't think that's the case. I think it doesn't matter which entity is administering the employee. The program's success is based on each entity's taking advantage of it and making sure that she's offering her services as many places as possible. You could argue that we're paying some, I think, relatively small amount more to administer her employment that the other entities aren't paying, but I don't think it's a huge amount. And I mean, we can ask the question.
Mayor Clark.
Yeah.
Could I weigh in on this? This is Shane.
Yeah, go ahead, Shane.
So as part of the budget and part of the grants, Elaine's, all the benefits and everything are included. $3,000 is budgeted each year for the services, including the administrative services up front. In prior years, we hadn't been able to, we hadn't charged that or used those funds through the town because we were short on grant money or short on program, and in order to keep it. But this year with the VOCA grant and the Vail grant, we were capable or able to budget that in for 2021 and 2022. It's budgeted in. So there's minimal extra cost to the town versus the county or the city of Ouray. And part of the money that they each year of the IGA is to go towards that too. So
Great, thanks, Shane. That's helpful to clarify that. Thank you.
And initially, when the program was developed, the city and the county didn't have space available to house the victim advocate in the program. And so I was part of it back then as a deputy. So Jen Coates and former Marshall, offered the facility there, and then it's just kind of stayed that way. We did have some discussions late last year with the county about taking over the program, and those kind of just stalled out, and we opted to just go ahead and keep it here because the costs are covered, and just for smoother operations with the grant funding and everything. Elaine and I worked pretty hard at getting that set up, and now it's in place. So we just opted to keep the program there.
Okay, thanks. One additional question. Does the choice or the selection of the victim advocate, is that done on a periodic basis, or is it just a roll forward scenario where the existing one has tenure and it just goes from year to year? Is there any reevaluation or selection process that takes place?
That's a good question. I'm not aware of that. I think she's treated just like any other employee and is kept on, assuming she still is doing a good job. Is that right, Shane?
Yeah, we just, we evaluate every year that she's doing what we ask of her, and that she, shares her time equally with each agency as needed, and that goes along with it. And we don't really have a formal evaluation process of her, but as long as things are working smoothly, and the 3 agencies were initially all picked Elaine as the advocate, and then if we have any issues come up, then we address them with the agencies, and decide if we want to go forward with her too.
Great.
And we haven't had any problem. Elaine does a super job. She's really been instrumental in working on the grants. Spent a lot of hours getting those that she didn't get compensated for, because they are really time consuming, especially the VOCA grant.
Great, thanks, Shane. That brings up one thing that in my role on the MEND group in the county, the group of us formed an entity I think most of you are aware of called Men Ending Rape Culture. We got together to try and address sort of the spate of rapes that were happening in the last decade, and trying to educate our populace about the issues of rape. And one of the things I'd like to see incorporated a little in more detail in his contract is to have the victim advocate, to the degree her time allows, get out into the community more and educate the community about her existence, and like do presentations at the high schools and stuff about proper behavior, and educating our young men about consent. And I think a lot more could be done. I know she's got limited hours, but I know in discussions with her in the past, she said that there just isn't a whole lot of there just haven't been a lot of victims coming forward. And I think that's probably as much out of ignorance as anything. So one thing I'd sure like to see is that we ask Elaine to do a little more outreach to the degree possible. And I don't know if that's something we want to discuss putting in the actual contract here, or the agreement, but I'd sure like to see that happen.
She can come talk to my health class anytime.
Is there any formal scheduled outreach, or is it a reactive or passive thing?
I believe it's fully reactive, that she only gets a call if there's been a crime reported that needs a victim advocate. Is that right, Shane?
We have tried to incorporate some outreach. She, I believe, talked like with the men group at one point. And also she was scheduled, they were having a class at the 4-H center when COVID hit. And she was going to be a part of that and bring down a victim advocate out of Montrose to help her with the class. And that all got canceled. So, outreach we can do. We just, with the COVID restrictions and everything, we had kind of let that lay. But I'll get with her and do it. And if you want to write that into the contract, we can discuss it with her and get something, formally worked up to get set up.
Preston or Bo or both of you, what's your take? Is that something that would be appropriate to ask to add back into this IGA, or do you think that just an informal discussion with the other entities about it would be adequate?
I think the latter, if you're asking my opinion, sir, I think we have that direction and we can move forward with that. Amending the IGA might be a bit of a task. I think it's already been approved by the other 2 jurisdictions.
Okay.
So not that that's, the biggest deal in the world, but I think we've heard you loud and clear and can move forward with bolstering that outreach.
Great. Thank you.
And I would echo that, Mayor, with respect to the thought process. I think that this is really just trying to get the IGA in place, but she's under our direction, or as we've kind of outlined here. So would be the ability to give that same direction in terms of the outreach.
Okay. Preston, would it be appropriate for me to reach out to Mayor Funk and Uray and Ben Tisdale as the other signatories on this to just give them my take on this and let them know that we're having Shane talk to Elaine about it as well? Or do you think
I think that's totally fine?
Okay, good. I will do that.
And one last question: if outreach is something that is forthcoming, does the victim advocate have a budget other than her salary? And is there any budget associated with paying for outreach? For materials or for media?
There's
probably going down the weeds too much, but
why there's a line item budget as part of both sets of grant funding for sure. Shane can talk to that much better than I can. I don't recall, I saw it not too long ago. I don't recall whether there's an education or outreach specific line item called out. Regardless, I think we can accommodate for it.
Yeah, I think so too. All right. Good discussion. Somebody want to make a motion? Oh, wait, before we do that, anybody in the audience have comments or questions about this item?
Hi, Mayor, I have my hand up. Sorry, I
Sorry, I
guess it
didn't see
keeps,
it.
that's okay. So Robin Cascade and there's amazing the number of things on the agenda tonight that interest me and of concern. And I want to tonight to this agenda item, I'm representing a very grassroots group of concerned community members, and we call ourselves VASA, which stands for Victim Advocacy Support Alliance. And I acknowledge that it's the 3 law enforcement agencies are the official supervising entities, not this elected body, but I do have a couple of questions / concerns for you all. I wasn't going to actually raise the issue of where the victim advocate is housed, but Councilman Cholo, having brought that up, just made me aware of the fact that there are options of where the victim advocate could be housed. And I know that the sheriff's, the courthouse was under reconstruction, and so the sheriff's office didn't have a space. I do know that the staff at the sheriff's office have particular expertise in victim advocacy and investigation in particular. And so if the council, I can't imagine that that's going to happen this round of the IGA, because like Preston said, it's already down the pipeline. But in the future, if the town of Ridgway would be open to that discussion, I think that there's possibilities for a different model, different sharing. And I would add that I think it's important, and it's not in the document, but I do think it's important that the victim advocate have a physical presence in the different agency offices periodically. And to my knowledge, that's not happening. The question I did want to raise tonight is under the accountability section, there is mention of monthly reports. And I'm wondering if the town council periodically or regularly reviews the victim advocate's monthly reports, and if they are showing any trends and incidences, reporting and or services delivered. Basically, does the council have an opinion regarding whether the current victim advocate services are adequate to meet the community's needs?
That's a good question. I'm not sure how we could answer it, quite honestly, but I appreciate you asking it.
And so, Mayor Clark, are you seeing these monthly reports?
I can't remember the last time I saw one, quite honestly.
Okay.
But yeah, I think I guess I thought the question was more about whether we thought what she was doing was valuable. I guess that directly stems from whether or not the reports are are being read and understood. Shane, I don't know, do you forward those reports to us monthly? I know that I'm not seeing them as part of the council packet or anything.
It was my understanding that Wayne was emailing those to all the, at least the liaisons for the city, county, and in town. I don't know if they're not getting distributed or if, but we do get the reports from her monthly, her reporting as the 3 agency heads associated with that. We can make sure that they were going out, because I know at one point the city of Ridgway council was requesting those, and I thought they were being sent out, but I'll verify with Wayne and make sure that they get emailed to all the city officials or the councils and commissioners.
Yeah. Okay, thanks. Does that help, Robin?
Yeah, somewhat. And Marshall Schmaltz, are those reports available to the public? I'm assuming they don't have any confidential information in them, but, you know, VASA would be interested in just, you know, number of calls received by the victim advocate and what the follow-up and response is.
Yeah, we can discuss a platform of how we can get those out or make them available. I'll work with Preston to see if we can make that available on the town site and see if the other agencies are wanting to do that also. So I'll work on it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Robin. Anything else?
I'm all set. Thanks.
Okay, appreciate your comments. Anyone else? All right, so back to, we need a motion to enter into this IGA.
I move to approve the IGA between the town of Ridgway, the city of Ridgway, Ridgway County for shared victim and Ridgway County for shared victim advocate services.
Second.
I think Adam just beat you to the wire. Motion by Russ, seconded by Adam. Roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Beck,
Aye.
Borelli,
Aye.
Lakin,
Aye.
Skylar,
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Meyer.
Aye.
All right, thank you. That takes us to item number 12. Discussion regarding the draft decision notice and the environmental assessment for the Baldy Mountain Landscape Resiliency and Habitat Improvement Project. That has Preston's name on it, but I know he's hoping that I will help him talk about this one. Preston, you want to lead it off, or do you want me to?
Go ahead, Mayor.
Yeah, so you guys will probably remember this was put on our radar by Preston about probably close to a month ago, 2 or 3 weeks ago anyway, that the BLM was looking at the decision notice and environmental assessment for the Baldy Mountain Landscape Resiliency and Habitat Improvement Project and give us an opportunity to comment and or file an objection. And I'm guessing Robin might want to talk on this one as well. She and I were both on the Zoom call with the county this afternoon, or this morning, I should say, where they were going into this in detail with members of the BLM and some other members of the public, interested members. Suffice it to say that I don't think there's any reason for us to file an objection per se, but I do think that we could echo the county's take on it by just making a comment that basically says that the key issues of use of hand crews over mechanical for thinning prior to the prescribed burns in the Baldy roadless area. In other words, to try and protect the roadless from becoming non-roadless by using mechanical means to create fire lines. That would be something that I know the county made very clear and that we could probably echo. And I'd be happy to kind of write that in a short comment that we could submit by the deadline, which excuse me, is coming right up. I can't remember when it is, but I think we have at least a few days or a week to submit that.
So, Mayor, if I may, so objections have to be filed in writing. They have to be filed within 45 days of the publication of the legal notice in the Montrose Daily Press. The legal notice was published on December 11th, it said. So I think that makes, if my math's right, and I'm not very good at math, that makes the objection filing deadline January 24th.
Okay.
But as you were saying, this may not warrant a full objection, but a comment. Is that right, Mayor?
Right. Right. And Robin, can I prevail upon you to help me understand if that's what we would be doing?
Sure, sure, Mayor, happy to. So just for the record, the town submitted comments during what was called the scoping period, and the Forest Service chose not to have a draft environmental assessment. So there was no other public comment period. So if you submitted comments during scoping, you were entitled to do something called protesting. And this is in the NEPA process, the National Environmental Protection Act. Do I have that right, Beth?
That's right, yeah.
And so if you were to formally object right now, you would be basically saying you do not want this project to go forward. So what I understand Mayor Clark is saying is you're basically writing a letter of support with cautions or considerations that you strongly want to recommend. And I don't believe at this point, Mayor Clark, I haven't gone back and looked at your scoping letter from the town, but I don't believe that that would deviate a lot from your scoping comments to comment with regard to preserving the roadless character of the Baldy roadless area. The project area is larger and encompasses BLM land. The Baldy roadless area, by the way, is on Forest Service land.
I'm sorry, I misspoke, yeah.
Yeah, so, but there's BLM land and there's private land included in this project. So it's a fairly comprehensive interagency collaborative. And certainly you're free to comment on the parts that aren't the Baldy roadless area, but that's certainly the emphasis that I have shared with the town when I've spoken with you. And we did get some.
Go ahead.
We did get some assurance today, and correct me if I'm wrong, Mayor Clark, some assurance today that the design would offer as much protection for the Baldy roadless area as possible. But having it in your letter, I think would be very helpful. The two parts I think we've spoken about. One is the use of hand treatment wherever possible over mechanical treatment, because the big machinery, the masticators, they're these massive, massive machines. They do tear up the earth. And the second one is this notion of 100-foot wide fire line. And they pretty much assured us, Luke Hoagland, the project lead, and Commissioner Neese is on this call tonight, so I know he will speak up if I misspeak, because he and I have had many conversations about this as well. That they have assured us that they will, especially in the roadless area, use hand crews as much as possible, and it will not be clear cutting that 100-foot, it will be thinning, with preserving some of the larger gambrel oak, greater than 6-inch diameter, and that there will be no wider than a 50-inch fire, I don't know exactly what they call it, but it's down to bare soil. So there will be something that's bare soil, and then away from the prescribed burn on the outside, right, is this 100-foot fire line that they're going to try and sort of feather in and take out what they need. And our request from Great Old Broads, and I believe, Jake, correct me if I'm wrong, the BOCC today decided to add a component about doing that in the Baldy roadless area with hand tools as much as possible, and avoiding the use of mechanical tools when possible.
Yes, we did. We did express that preference. There are a few areas where or a lot of the areas where they've specified that they'd use masticators, and it depends. Sometimes those are just kind of grinders put on the front end of a Bobcat. The bigger ones can be excavators, but anywhere where they have steep slopes, they're not going to obviously be able to use those pieces of equipment. So they'll have hand crews working in with equipment in a lot of the same places. And so the county just expressed a preference to use more hand crews than machine wherever possible.
Thanks, Commissioner Neese.
So I'm just suggesting that that I draft a letter from the town, basically backing up what the county's position is, if you guys think that is warranted.
Sure. Sounds good.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Okay. Preston, do we need a motion, or is that adequate consensus?
I didn't catch that, John, sorry.
Do we need a motion on this, or is just the consensus of council for me to write a letter mentioning the things that we just talked about adequate?
I think, well, go ahead, Bob.
I would like a motion. I think that would be good just to support it, because it's going to get on the record. So
that's just what I was going to say too. So let's see. First off, anybody in the audience have any comments or questions on this item?
Can I offer just an additional comment?
Sure, Jake, go ahead.
This topic has me squarely on my soapbox. I think this project is a really incredible example of what we need to see more of to start chipping away at that buildup of fuels that's been building up from over a century of suppressing every single fire. This is in a classic wildland urban interface area, and the Community Wildfire Protection Plan has categorized all the neighborhoods around there at very high risk in the event of a wildfire. And so this is just a really great example of the Forest Service, the BLM, working with private landowners and a bunch of other agencies and cooperators to put together what is, I think, will be a very effective project. And it's the kind of thing that I want to see more of around the county and around the country, to start reintroducing good fire back onto the landscapes, so that we can chip away at these problem areas before we have our catastrophic wildfire, because it's going to come maybe soon. And so the more we do, the better.
Thanks, Jake. Well said.
Commissioner Neese, with Mayor Clark's approval, would you be willing to share the draft letter, especially the revised draft letter, so Mayor Clark doesn't have to reinvent the wheel? I think he has enough to do to not have to write the letter from scratch.
I was just
yes. I'll ask Connie. She's gonna. We had a few changes to make to our draft today, so she's gonna add those in, and so I will send a request to Connie to also send that to Mayor Clark so he can take a look at that.
Great, thank you. I was just going to ask that too, Robin. Okay, any other comments from the audience? Questions? Hearing none, is there a motion?
So I guess my question is, what is the motion?
The motion would be to authorize the mayor to write a letter to the Forest Service / BLM with some minimal comments about this Baldy resiliency plan.
So moved.
Second.
Well done.
Squeaky.
And who's going to second?
I seconded it already. Yeah.
Oh, I didn't hear you, Adam. Sorry. Motion made by Russ, Adam, seconded by Adam. Roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Beck,
Aye.
Pirelli,
Aye.
Lakin,
Aye.
Skylar,
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Meyer.
Aye.
Great. Thanks, everybody. All right. So that takes us to a sad moment where we have to say goodbye to Angela. And again, as I said at the beginning of the meeting, Angela, I enjoyed working with you. I wish we'd been able to work together in person a little more than we did, but it was great working with you on the Film Fest committee. And I wish you nothing but success in whatever lies ahead for you, and you will be missed. So thanks for your service, and I'm sure the rest of council totally agrees.
Yeah, well, thanks. It's been a great experience, and I'm sorry to leave. But you know, life throws you curveballs.
It certainly does, now more than ever. Yeah. But like I say, whatever lies ahead, wish you the best of luck and nothing
Thank
but
you.
success. And we know you'll go far. That leaves the council with the question, though. That will create a vacancy, and we have to decide whether we want to advertise for that vacancy or wait till the election, which is coming up just in a couple of months.
Mayor Clark, if I can just
ahead.
say, if council were to appoint someone at this point, that position will still come up at the election. So that person would maybe serve a month before the election.
Yeah.
So nomination period starts in a few weeks.
Right.
And the election's in April. So any vacancy you fill right now has to come up at the next election.
Right. So
Hey,
best
Pam.
case scenario is if we advertise for someone to fill the vacancy and could get them in place before the February meeting, is that they would sit for both the February and March meetings and then be up for election the first Tuesday in April, I believe it is.
Well, the seat would be up for election, not necessarily the person.
Correct. That's what, yes, right.
Pam, in Preston's report, I don't see Angela's name in the list of those up for
That's
election.
because she just told us.
That's because there's now,
resigned.
whenever there's a vacancy on the council, it has to be filled at the next election.
I see.
So,
So
there is now going to be a seat that will be available for 1 year. So there'll be 4 council seats up at the April election. 3 of those seats will be 2-year terms, and 1 of those seats will be a 1-year term.
I get it. Thank you.
The reason she's not on there is because she just submitted her resignation just
I see.
in the last week or so.
And so just quickly to piggyback on what Pam said, that's a charter provision in terms of under the charter, you have to have that vacancy over the next regular election. There's not a time frame under the charter in terms of where there needs to be appointment.
So we would just be appointing someone to act as counselor at the March meeting, essentially.
Unless we could get them in place before the February meeting, correct? Which we could do, but I think I'm hearing you say what I feel myself is that it doesn't make any sense for us to try and get someone to put their name into the hat for filling this vacancy for at most 2 months and more likely just a month.
Unless it's considered an audition for the election.
I would just say it makes sense to put it to the residents of Ridgway to pick that council member if we're doing it for just that short a period of time.
I'm not sure what you're suggesting.
No, I'm saying we don't appoint anybody.
Oh.
Like, we might as well just let it go to the election where they can be voted on by the residents.
I think I'm seeing everyone nod their head in agreement.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm there.
And I vote, does that require a motion?
Yeah, I think it would be good, just again, so we have the record and everybody's on the same page.
So someone needs to move that we recognize that there's a vacancy with Angela's resignation, but we're choosing not to fill that vacancy and letting it be filled at the regular town election, the first Tuesday in April.
Oh, I wanted to so move, but I knew Russ was going to do it.
Well, then second me.
Okay, I will. There it is.
That was a lame second, but I'll give it to you anyway. Any other discussion? Anybody in the audience have any comments or question? Anybody want to chime in saying we should appoint somebody next month?
We'll miss your voice again, Angela.
Oh, thanks, Adam.
Yeah. Okay, so motion's been made and seconded. Can we have a roll call vote, please?
Councilmember Beck,
Aye.
Farrelly,
Aye.
Lakin,
Aye.
Skylar,
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Meyer.
Aye.
Okay, thanks, everybody. And Angela, thanks again for your time serving your community. It's a big deal. We appreciate it. All right, that takes us to, I believe, the town manager's report. Anything you want to highlight for us, Preston?
Yeah, there's a few things I'll highlight, but there was a discussion item on a masking requirement.
Oh, right.
Mayor.
I'm sorry, I skipped right over that.
I do want to highlight some stuff and then I'll let you kind of take it away, John, but got a note from Connie Hunt today. The county's interested in a joint work session with the city and the town to discuss masking in public places. And I think, John, you might know better than I do, but at the city's last meeting, which was probably earlier in the week, they opted against a masking requirement and I think are going the path of just urging or highly encouraging folks to wear masks.
Okay, I hadn't heard that. Last I heard they had canceled a meeting because of the Omicron surge, and I hadn't heard anything about the meeting that they probably actually had on Monday. So that's news to me. I'm sorry, but it doesn't surprise me.
I attended that meeting and nobody there was wearing a mask. Besides me.
Well, so let's have the discussion. I know the county has been, they have an indoor mask requirement for all county facilities and have had for several months now. And I know Tanner and I think Glenn and probably a commissioner or two have said in public that they wish that the other two governmental entities in the county would do the same in just in solidarity. We took it up at our meeting a couple months ago, and decided against it. At this point, I'm completely tossed up. I think, I mean, we obviously went all virtual tonight, and depending on where we're at in the next couple of weeks, I would guess that we may go all virtual again for our meeting anyway, in February. But as far as mask requirement in town spaces, I think that would really only affect town hall. County has a lot more buildings that are subject to their requirement. I don't know. What do y'all think?
I don't know, I feel like this is a tricky thing because we are seeing a lot more cases now, and but we only do have that one building. But it would be nice to, show the county that the support that they're asking for.
Yeah, I can see going either way. Beth, what do you think?
Well, essentially what we're doing is we're asking, if we do this, we're asking town staff to mask in town hall. That's the big gain and benefit. And if that's not happening, then you can't ask the public to mask when you come in. That being said, we've had this giant spike. Ridgway School hasn't really seen transmission at the school. We've seen individual kids come down with COVID, but most of them can point to a family member that got COVID, and we're back to being fully masked. We came back after break, And so we're not seeing transmission with vaccinated folks in the high school who are masked. So, but we're then asking staff to do it and do it consistently because we can't ask the public to do it otherwise.
As an additional data point, San Miguel Power is requiring masks in our offices by both staff and the public. Which is why I work from home.
I mean, I'm wearing an N95 every day at this point, all day, except for when I'm eating lunch.
Yep. Yep, and my wife was wearing a mask all day, every day at her Montrose Middle School, but she was one of the few people wearing a mask, and she got COVID, tested positive last Friday. So who knows?
I think erring on the side of caution, you know, I have, I'm kind of on the same boat right now. I followed all the guidelines and still have it. So, but either way, I think it's good to at least try to, safer than sorry, at least provide, you know, communal effort on.
Well, and setting an example.
We can.
And I just want to come back to that example piece. Like if town staff isn't doing it, then it looks hollow. So we are asking this of our staff. And as someone who's doing it and is sort of glad that that's what's happening, since I do interact with 50 people every day, it needs to mean that.
Well, I guess the tricky question then, or at least somewhat interesting question is, Preston, what do you think that staff as a whole at Town Hall would feel about us instituting a mandate?
So I'm not going to speak for all of staff. I can speak for myself. If there's a mask mandate, you know, I will follow it, but it's certainly hard to enforce, which is why you see some jurisdictions refraining from a mask requirement when there's really not going to be a mechanism, or, you know, maybe a lack of backbone to really enforce it, right? You know, just see it at government levels, you see it everywhere. So to answer your question, I mean, if a mask mandate is going to be imposed, you know, I will certainly follow it, but I can't speak for the remainder of staff at Town Hall and the other town facilities, which there's not many. It's pretty much just Town Hall.
Right.
You know, one nuance to the requirement that we have at San Miguel Power is you're required to wear a mask unless you're behind a closed door in your office. So if you can isolate in a private office, then you don't have to wear it in your office. But that's of little benefit to many of the staff, since there's only a few private offices.
What's to be said about I'm just more of a discussion point of the onus on person concerned about that actually wearing a fit tested mask. You know, you can wear a surgical mask. If it's not fit tested, you're not really, there's no point in wearing a mask.
I wouldn't say that. I mean, we're even seeing surgical masks being better than cloth masks, and they're not. I mean, it's better than nothing.
But a true fit test mask is going to ensure that you're not breathing in those particles.
Absolutely, but you know, I think, yeah.
Well,
just a discussion point. You know, yeah. I had to say it.
I mean, those of us with beards, we are not going to pass a fit test. Russ and I for sure are not going to pass a fit test. And you know, I'm just being real honest here, but my guess is that there are people in Town Hall who would not want to have to wear a mask and might actually deliberately say, I'm not going to, you know, say I'm not going to wear a mask.
So John, if I can just maybe add to what I was saying before, you know, when there was a mask mandate in place many months ago, you know, coming from, it's hard to forget now, state level, county level,
right?
I don't even remember. Staff at Town Hall was really, really great. and I'm not just blowing smoke, really great about putting a mask on when members of the public were coming into town hall and when town hall was opened back up to the public with, with the masking requirement. So I definitely want to emphasize that. Terry, you make a really good point. The potential for not having a mask when you're, sitting at your desk or behind a closed door. I think that pretty common, very common. But I don't want folks to think that that staff hadn't and wouldn't make strides to be accommodating and understanding that there's a difference of opinion and there's a lot of sentiments out there, which is unfortunate, but just the way it is these days with the pandemic.
Thank you, Preston. That's helpful. I'm honestly surprised that the city of Ray decided not to do it. Not that necessarily plays a role in our decision, but I mean, I could go either way. I definitely can see Adam's point that, it's like putting our money where our mouth is, so to speak, trying to do the right thing. But then again, is it making enough of an impact? I don't know. What do we think we want to do? Oh, Sue, I see Sue's hand up. Go ahead, Sue.
Trying to unmute. I was noticing that I've been masking for months now. And I've been noticing that at Alpine Bank, even though they have the plexiglass divider, if I come in with a mask, they mask immediately. Like they see me coming, they mask. And I don't know whether that's just a comfort level thing, but it's a nice gesture too. And at the thrift shop, we're trying to get people to mask. We offer them at the door, and allow people to put them on if they want to. But it's time to go back to this, really. So thanks for considering it.
Yeah.
Along those lines, the staff, when there's no public in the building, are effectively a tribe, right? There used to be that, remember?
Cohort.
Right, thank you. But remember when we had entertained the idea of an outdoor venue and we painted a 6-foot circle, and as long as your cohorts were in that circle, everything was cool. What if we required masks of the public, and when the public entered, those that are public facing, quickly don a mask, but not require it when there's no public present? I mean, that may be too complicated, but
no, I think sounds kind of like that's what was happening in the past. Is that right, Preston? I mean, I think I heard you say that everybody put their mask on when somebody came in the building.
Yeah, that's a good way to characterize it.
So that the mandate that
Compromise.
we put forth is that the public must wear masks when entering the building, and then we follow suit by, echoing that when we're public facing.
When they come in. I'm cool with that.
Yeah, I feel like it's a good compromise.
Yep, I can get on board with that.
That way we're setting the example to the public, at least.
Okay, I think we do need a motion on this, and I'm not sure if we need to be that explicit about it. We're just saying that the public needs to wear masks when they come into town buildings. It'll be understood that the staff puts their masks on when the public comes in.
I move to approve requiring public to wear a mask when they enter town buildings. Is that it? Is that sufficient?
I think so, Preston.
Yes, I think that works.
Great.
Just for the record, thanks.
Terry seconded. Motion by Russ, second by Terry. Roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Beck,
Aye.
Councilmember Farrelly,
Aye.
Lakin,
Aye.
Skylar,
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Meyer.
Aye.
Great. Thanks, everybody.
I have one quick question or comment. In the last 2 days, I guess today in particular, CDC and others come out weighing in on the efficacy of various types of masks. And I know for a while, we have been providing the cloth masks to the public, and maybe second to that, the surgical masks. And now the new guidance is that it has to, to be really effective, it has to be an N95 or a KN95. Or if we're supplying masks for public to enter, should we switch over to that which the CDC is recommending and get, do away with the surgical and the cloth masks as the thing that we all them if they're not equipped when they enter? I mean, maybe it's an expense issue. I was able to purchase it. There's a website, and I can't remember the name of it right now, but I can forward it to Preston when I find it, where I ordered some of the KN95s, which are the less expensive ones made in China, but they're in the recommended category now. So it's a nuance.
Well, apparently Korea has these something 94s, which don't quite.
Right.
I don't know. I think getting people to throw on an N95 when they're not expecting it to, I think it takes some getting used to. I remember hating it. Now after 2 weeks, I'm like, meh, okay.
But if we're going to require masks as they enter, we might as well require the ones that are being recommended by the CDC.
Right. I think that
I would definitely skew towards the surgical masks over the cloth masks that we were handing out, for sure. Hands down.
Well, that might be the compromise then.
And if we had them available, that would also be an option where people could opt into that. But I think most of the people who are that worried about it will come in wearing an N95.
Well, personally, if we offered the N95s at the front desk, I'd come in and grab one just to have one. And others might too. I have plenty. I was joking, but I'm sure people would use them again outside of coming into our office. Anyway.
So I do want to make one last remark, kind of going back to what I said at the beginning. The county's reached out to see if the city and town would be amenable to a joint work session to discuss this very topic, I think. Are you all okay if I reply to Connie that the Ridgway Town Council is amenable to a joint work session on the topic?
Absolutely.
Sure. Okay. Preston, this is similar to the ones we used to attend back a year ago.
Actually, we used to call them the tri-agency meetings.
Right.
Those, I talked to one of the new Uray City Council people, Tamara Gouldy, and she said she's, excuse me, she's working with Uray City Council to bring those back around and host the first one sometime in the first quarter of this year. So that's a separate deal. But I'm happy to hear that. I think it was their turn for many months now, but COVID kind of threw a wrench into everything. But I'm happy to hear that she's excited about bringing those back. And just so everybody knows, that's something that started way back under Jen's tenure, where we would have at least quarterly a joint meeting between the three governmental entities. We'd have dinner, and then we'd have a discussion topic, maybe a PowerPoint about some relevant issue. And it was just a great way for everybody to network and get to know our fellow electeds in the county. And I'm sorry that it hasn't happened for some of you in your short tenure, but for some of you it has. And I'm excited that they're going to come back. Hopefully, given that.
John, I think you might be the only one on council who's been to one.
It could be. Wouldn't surprise me. Well, they're coming back. So yeah, but Preston, go ahead and tell Connie that we're happy to have a separate work session to talk about masking and all. I mean, I don't want to go on a rabbit hole run, but it sure seems like the Omicron thing has sort of changed the whole landscape, and that the people who've been vaccinated and boosted they're getting COVID in huge numbers, but they're getting very mild cases that are more like the flu or a cold. I did test negative this afternoon, by the way. But it looks like with any luck, we might be heading towards a shift finally to where it could become endemic rather than pandemic. I'm not holding my breath, but you can tell I'm not holding my breath. But that's my hope.
Might
Anyway.
pass. That reminds me, a shout out to Pam and the other staff for putting on a great Christmas party, and the
Oh,
food
yeah.
and fun.
That was a great
A
event.
lot of work went into that, I'm sure.
Thanks for saying that, Terry. And I think we all second your sentiments there. Big thanks to Pam and the staff for throwing that great party. One of the
Good, we
best.
snuck that in under the COVID wire, didn't we?
That's for sure. And Pam, that was one of the best ones. And it was one of the best attended in several years, I'd say. It was great. Anyway, so that takes us back to the town manager's report, right?
Yes, sir. I saw Jake Neese had his hand up. Jake,
Oh, I'm sorry.
well, he put it down, but
Okay.
I don't know if he
Jake, are
wanted
you
to say
still there?
something.
I was just going to add, when you were discussing the masks, you can get in touch with Erie County Public Health and they can provide you some masks. I do believe they have a stockpile of legit N95s and plenty of surgical masks. So those are available if you want them.
Great. Thank you. Awesome. Jump on that, Preston.
Yeah, will do. So town manager's report, I'll just highlight a couple things and feel welcome to ask questions on anything y'all saw in there. Lena Street Improvements Project. Joanne and myself have arranged for a virtual informational session with neighboring property owners this next Monday, the 17th, to kind of present the scope of work for that project and need some information from some of those neighboring property owners to finalize the design. If any of you have an interest, I know Russ probably does. Anyone else has an interest in attending that? The Zoom meeting information was on the report. Tara Wick is the town's new community initiatives facilitator. She'll start next Tuesday, I think it is. Yeah, next Tuesday. And really excited to have her on board. We'll have her attend the next council meeting and introduce her to you all. Let's see. Uray County Court Judge Zachary Martin has announced his resignation from the post. I think he just announced it the other day. I think he's moving for a new position. Is that right, John?
That's right. He's moving to Vermont.
Yeah. So we're working to figure out a way to potentially hire a firm for municipal judge coverage for a few months, I guess March and April specifically, until the court vacancy is filled. The Heritage Park site plan update request for proposals that Colorado Main Street was administering. In all, they received one proposal from DHM Design, which honestly was a little bit expected and fitting, since they're the ones who had done the strategic plan for Heritage Park and the Visitor Center to begin with. And so happy to report that Comms is moving forward with contracting with DHM Design to move forward with that site plan concept update for Heritage Park. I can keep going if you guys want, but I don't really want to.
No, I think, I mean, a lot of the other things on here, we've talked about the Rural Philanthropy Days. That's a great one. I thought the joke was actually pretty good. The only thing you should have said is that the mayor texted me instead of boss texted me.
Yes.
But other than that, that's one of your best.
I actually copied that joke and sent it to my boss. That's how good it was. Yeah.
That's top 3 so far, Preston, actually.
I have a quick question about the 2022 elections for these town council spots. What if we want to retain our seat? What procedure do we have to go through? Do we have to get signatures again, or?
Yep, you got to take out a petition and get 20 signatures or 15 signatures. I can't remember. But how many is it, Pam?
Yes, you have to follow the same process as anyone else. So the nomination period starts the last day of the month, I believe, that last Monday of the month. And you'll pull a petition, you'll get 10 signatures on that, and you'll file it within the time frame, and you'll become a candidate.
In light of COVID, is there any way to use electronic signatures rather
No.
than physical? Has to be a physical signature?
No, there is not.
That's a good point, but I think there are workarounds.
And then actually, as a more general public note, Pam, do people need to request mail-in ballots from you for that, considering COVID and people's concerns? Hopefully
Yes,
by
well,
April, it'll be better.
The election will be held in exactly the same way. You can vote by mail, or you can come to a polling place.
Okay. Like I
But
said,
there-
hopefully by April, it'll be better.
But to be clear, there won't be mail ballots sent out automatically. You have to request one, right?
Correct.
Right. We should probably blanket our social media and
I always do.
email chains on all that. Just let everybody know. Great. Well, Shane, thanks for the marshal's office update. Got upcoming meetings. Anything else? Anybody have any reports from any of their committees or boards? Silence, crickets.
John, do you want to mention the Youth Advisory Council meeting the other day?
Oh, yeah. Youth Advisory Committee is going well. As always, huge credit to Preston on that. He's just doing a bang up job in creating the agendas every month and organizing the meeting and actually shepherding it along. Emma, I've forgotten Emma's last name already, of course. The new mayor.
Oh, Anna Barchi.
Anna, right? Not Emma. Anna Barchi is the mayor. Cooper Ahern is the mayor pro tem. We got, as you all know, I think we had one resign, so do we have 9 members now?
We have 29 members, did you say?
I said 9. It's a really dynamic group. They're all really, for the most part, there's a couple that are very quiet, but I'm impressed with how the vast majority, probably, if it is 9, if I'm right about that, Preston, I'd say 7 of them are like very much making comments all meeting long and have all sorts of great ideas. They would, with Preston's help, they've already got a new Ridgway Youth Council website in the works. They're planning events. It's really great. I think it's one of the coolest things we've done. And Preston, you just deserve a whole bunch of credit for making it happen. So thank you.
Oh, thanks for that. Well, real quick, I do want to mention you mentioned their website. I learned so much about Google Sites, and I think it's the coolest thing ever now. So I'll send you guys the link to their new site. Hopefully they start uploading their bios and their pictures and stuff and have a recap of the last meeting. But the coolest part, I mean, this group is talkative and just it really, really great conversations at that level.
Very engaged.
A really cool idea that came from the last session was it revolves around a community suggestion box, so that they can hear from their peers and even adults about what issues they really care about, to see what the trends are. And so they're actually going to go talk to the shop teacher, Adam Johnson, to create some of these boxes so that they can put them around town. I mean, it's just a really, really neat idea that I certainly hope comes to fruition. But I was just amazed at how that conversation evolved.
I totally.
So if they chose a project to focus on, like the last group did, I think they did a video or something.
Well, that's a great question. That's the motivation for this box, to see what suggestions come in and what the trends are, so they can perhaps hone in on something to focus on for their like capstone project.
Cool.
If that's what you're asking.
Yeah, that's exactly it.
Yeah, they're a dynamic group. It's really fun to see.
There was some talk about them attending our council meetings as a group, or I seem to recall, maybe I'm confusing that with something else. But are they interested in doing that or presenting to the council? I can't remember. When they were all interviewing, some conversation along those lines came up.
I think we talked about them early on about them taking turns attending and giving a report. Do you remember, Preston?
Yeah, I think that was it. Of course, end of year, end of term, the expectation is that they come back to council and report on, give like an annual report kind of thing. That ended up not happening last year. I'm forgetting why, but we could certainly prod them to do just that, though, attend more regularly, at least one person each meeting.
Or quarterly update, maybe.
Or maybe just put it to them to how they would like to put together some form of input at our meetings, whether they want to do it in groups 2 or 3, or whether they just want to do it one at a time. But they're the kind of group that you want to give them some room to decide how they want to do it. All right. Anything else before my voice completely gives out?
I didn't hear Bo weigh in on the joke.
That's because he was embarrassed.
No, I liked it a lot. I thought I would agree with John. It's one of Preston's better efforts. So
as a dad, you can relate, right?
yeah, I think it was good. I think it should have substituted John and Preston for the dialogue. So
all right. Well, I didn't hear anybody else want to report on any committee issues.
I'll give it's not a report, but I did get a chance to attend the skijoring, however you pronounce that.
Skijoring, yep.
Skijoring, it was pretty well attended, especially, I went there, I tried to go on Saturday, but it was cold and miserable. And then Sunday I had a fresh blanket of snow and it seemed to bring out a pretty good crowd. So the fairgrounds was hopping. They ran out of beer. I bought the last Coors beer. That's how I came late for the professional competition. But anyway, it was good to see that the Erie County Fairgrounds was back in action.
Yeah, that's great.
Publicly. Last year they had no public for the event.
Right. Yeah, I was supposed to be a gate monitor, but because I got exposed the night before, I had to bow out. But it sounded like it went well. All right, well, I won't drag this out. If no one has anything else, I will declare our meeting adjourned. Thank you all.
Thanks, Angela. Good luck.
Yep.
Thanks.
Happy trails.
Thank
Stay
you.
safe.
We'll try.
Yeah, exactly. All right. Good night, everybody.
Bye, guys. Bye.
Thanks, Preston. Thanks, Pam.